When it's too tough for them, it's just right for us.
Where would you rather be than right here, right now?
The Rockpile Report with Buffalo Bills season ticket holder Drew Gear.
The Bills make me wanna
Guys played extremely hard, and you don't get anything for the effort in this game. It's one loss on the scoreboard. Obviously, we need to score more points. Appreciate the fans making the trip like they did down here to support us. Heck of a year. Appreciate how hard the guys played, how hard they worked all season, and this was a step. We learned a lot of valuable lessons today, ones that we'll carry forward as we move forward as an organization.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I am your host, Buffalo Bills season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger, and we have a very special guest in studio with us tonight, Buffalo Bills flag holder Gregg Torlone.
I'm back.
You're back.
Second time this year.
Yeah, we didn't have to wait 2 years.
And that, folks, was Sean McDermott from his press conference at BuffaloBills.com. I highly suggest you go listen to the rest of it because there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. Roll damn Tide! I got to kick it off with that. Woo!
Of course.
What a national title
Expect
game,
nothing
folks.
Less.
Chris, hit me with a Dixie horn.
That's
Oh, the Tide are national champions once again, regardless of what UCF would like to claim.
They are unbeaten.
They are unbeaten. Only because they didn't play anybody ranked higher than 20. All right? That's why they're unbeaten. So, I'm watching the national championship game last night, folks, and I found a weird kind of correlation that kind of fit my mindset with the Bills, and we're going to talk about it right here and now, since it's just on the tip of my tongue.
Let's lead with it.
You look at what occurred last night in the national title game. Georgia versus Alabama. Georgia dominates Alabama's offense for the entirety of the first half. Jalen Hurts, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. He's 3 of 8 passing. He's overthrowing wide receivers. He's underthrowing wide receivers. He's got some athleticism. He makes a bunch of flash plays with his legs. But ultimately, he's not passing accurately enough to beat what is a very legitimate defense in Georgia. So they go into the half down 0-13, and I'm thinking in my head, how are they going to make this back?
I want to fucking slice your neck every time you say 0-13. Have you ever heard somebody say that? You start
Lead with the bottom score.
Yeah.
I say it because I know it drives him crazy.
I want to Malarchuck your neck right now.
So then they come out of the tunnel at halftime, and it's announced that true freshman quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is now going to start. Going to start the second half for the Crimson Tide. The kid has literally never taken a meaningful snap in his short career here with Alabama. And I'm looking at it, and all I can think about, and then you watch him play, and it starts to get, as I'm watching this, and I'm like, well, what is, Nick Saban must have hired somebody. There must be an assistant on that staff whose only job is to carry around Nick Saban's balls. Because to pull that, and during the national championship game, that's huge. It just takes a lot of guts to make that call. And it panned out for him. The kid was a more accurate thrower, and he did flash a little bit of athleticism. He wasn't the runner Jalen Hurts was, but he did enough to get the team back in the game. And then with his arm, because he's an accurate passer, far more accurate passer, he was able to get the Tide back into the game and ultimately win the title. Now,
I don't want anybody that listens to our show to question your fandom for Alabama, because you just took the time to pronounce that guy's name correctly. I don't give a shit.
Do you know his actual first name? Then I'll be impressed.
No, because I've seen it, and it's like 9 different names.
Yeah, there's a bunch of names there.
So ultimately, though, my correlation back to the Buffalo Bills, when everybody and their mother got down on the Buffalo Bills as a franchise for deciding to bench Tyrod Taylor, everyone beat up McDermott. Everyone said it was the dumbest thing they'd ever seen. The mainstream media got down on him for it. When you have an athletic quarterback who isn't throwing accurately, and you see that he's tanking your offense, is it wrong to go with a guy who is more of a pure passer? Because that's what Nick Saban did, and it panned out. And if it hadn't panned out, nobody was going to crucify the guy because they saw how poorly this kid was throwing the football in the first half with Jalen Hurts. It reminded me a lot of the decision to bench Taylor, because in Taylor you've got a guy who's athletic. He can do a lot of great things for you with his legs. But when a defense commits itself to taking that away, he is not the quarterback who can win with his arm. And neither is Jalen Hurts. And Nick Saban, in the effort of trying to save his game, win a national title. And you've got Sean McDermott, who's trying to save his season. Makes a switch at quarterback to someone he thinks can spin the ball a little bit more accurately. It worked for this guy. It didn't work for us as Bills fans. But the fact is that that's the mindset you almost have to have.
I mean, it didn't work directly. They still made the playoffs.
They did.
They had to go back to Tyrod Taylor to
did.
do it. But I think the number one thing that bothers me about that is that, well, first of all, okay, I get it. They were 5-4 and they're switching to a rookie quarterback who was taken in the 5th round. And again, on the road against the best pass rush in the league with, Ingram and Bosa, or, maybe they're, you could make the argument, maybe they're not the best pass rush in the league, but I think by sacks they are.
Yes.
As a tandem. I'm glad that this we can transition into the Jacksonville game. I'm glad that this playoff game was out there, the only game on for people to watch, so they could watch Tyrod Taylor, because I think a lot of, at least national pundits and stuff, they looking back to what they, how they reacted back in like week 11 or whatever it was for the Peterman game. They were like, well, Buffalo, you have Tyrod Taylor. He doesn't throw interceptions, and you should just be happy with what you have. And I just want to be like, screw you. I don't need to be happy with what I have.
I shouldn't have to embrace mediocrity just because that's been the name of my franchise.
Like, I just got throttled in 2 games. I got behind because, I don't know, my defense wasn't playing very well, and this quarterback can't bring me back.
No. So what is it wrong with a coach going to the well and saying, listen, maybe somebody else. It was just, this moment was just such a thing for me to say, look, other coaches can do it. Why can't we? Because other than the fact that we're the Buffalo Bills and we should accept mediocrity, that's the only thing I can come up with why anyone would tell me it's a good idea.
Yeah, you see, like, even Alex Smith, okay, the Chiefs lost, but what did Alex Smith throw for 150 yards in the first quarter, or first quarter and a half?
Yeah.
I know they ended up losing, and the offensive coordinator got a head coaching job, but, like, why do, I don't know, I guess.
That's the total that Tyrod gives us in a game.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
and
that's
he's going for that in 15 minutes.
Yes. Please tweet at us at Rockpile Report if you were impressed that Tyrod had 14 passing touchdowns.
I feel like,
and also
earlier on the show, I when I was on there earlier this year, I kind of defended Tyrod because I think the Bills were, 4-2 at the time. Chris was over here saying how Derek Carr was elite.
He is elite.
He is elite. Sure.
Folks, tweet at us with your opinions about Tyrod Taylor, and feel free to tweet at us to congratulate me on a season well played by the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Hey, you can fuck off.
Roll damn Tide! Folks, what a season by the Buffalo Bills. I mean, since we're over here celebrating just fantastic seasons, what a year. I mean, that's the theme of this show, is just a year in review. I mean, I want to really get into this and really talk about what this season meant to fans, to our image, as far as our national perception. Just, there's a lot here. We got to get right into it, and we're going to kick it off, as we always do, with this week's Bills News Update. The future of Kyle Williams is very much up in the air. Now, everyone kind of saw this coming. It's the end of the year. He's a unrestricted free agent. He's 35 years old, and he's been a part of our organization for the last 12 years. When you hear McDermott speak in his postgame and in his press conferences, when he's asked, today even, with their season-ending press conference, McDermott alluded to the fact that a guy like Kyle Williams, he was the heart and soul of the locker room. He really was.
I mean, they put those post-game speeches on how many on the BuffaloBills.com and whatnot. How many times did it seem like McDermott was like deferring to Kyle Williams to do the speech?
He broke down every locker room.
Yeah.
Kyle Williams was that guy for this roster. And with as many young players and new faces and everybody who was going to take time to gel, he's the perfect elder statesman for that group. We had a guy from Sweden, Thomas Bronmir, who messaged us kind of a thing during the offseason when they were talking about Kyle Williams and whether would we cut him, would we keep him.
We started talking about that 2 years ago.
He said that when it comes to, he was talking about foreign sports, but over there because he's from Sweden. He was saying though there's they refer to the guys like Kyle Williams on their team. They call them the culture carriers. They say these are the guys that everybody in the locker room looks to. These are the guys who, as a man and as an athlete and as a person, represent what our team's identity is supposed to be. And he said he can tell, even from all the way over there in Sweden, watching these Bills games and just following the organization the way he does, he's that for us. He has been, over the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, as some of these veteran players and these more talented guys, your Mario Williamses and things like that, have kind of come and gone. He's become that guy, the guy everyone looks to. And he's carried that for us. So when you hear them talk, though, about Kyle Williams and what he's going to do, that was one of the hot questions today at the press conference. McDermott even flat out said, you love having that guy back. There's just a lot that goes into it. Now, Brandon Beane echoed that sentiment and said, hey, there's interest on our end for bringing him back, but it has to be a two-way street. Now, that can be perceived as a lot of things. Some people may just look at that and say, oh, well, it's up to Kyle if he wants to play here. I think it's more a conversation of if he wants to play here for a price that matches his output. Because I think as a team, you're trying to turn that corner. One of the things you can't do is you can't spend another year. This year we paid Kyle Williams $8 million, or at least that was his cap hit.
Right. I don't think that's on the table.
I don't think you can do that again for a player who, even though he was the heart and soul of the team, had 3 sacks.
It's still rotational.
Yeah,
just like
it's a very rotational position. That being said, his future with this team is very much up in the air. I mean, first and foremost,
I want to say that plays out to what you're going to do in free agency.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in the draft? We're going to need defensive line help. I mean, who are defensive tackles? Was Ryan Davis a defensive tackle?
No, he's a defensive end.
Who's a lock to be on the roster now?
You can't even
Adolphus Washington because he's still on a rookie deal and he's cheap. Outside of him,
Shaq maybe.
DeAndre Coleman maybe at D tackle.
Did they cut him? I don't even know. Is he still on the roster? I think they released him.
I have no idea. See, this is my point.
I think the way you pay Kyle Williams is going to dictate what you do in free agency at defensive tackle or the draft.
And that's just it. So you got to try to. And I know that fans are going to say, "Oh, we need to bring him back if he wants to play." It's going to come down to price tag. I mean, I love the guy. I struggled with what jersey to buy because Ragland's gone. I'm not buying a Ragland jersey. I really don't know. I don't like cornerback jerseys. I don't know. I like linemen. I like linemen and I like linebackers because those are the positions that I know the most about that I can kind of keep an eye. Kyle Williams, since I can't find a Daryl Talley jersey, a replica Daryl Talley jersey anywhere, Kyle Williams is what I've settled on. And I'm going to buy one of his jerseys and that's just going to be mine.
That's fine.
Because
that's going to last a while. He's going on the wall.
He's one of those guys that I look to, and especially this season. He is the heart and soul of this team. He's our culture carrier. He's been that guy who's been not the face of the team. You got LaShawn McCoy for that. You've got to, for whatever purposes.
He's a superstar player, yeah.
But he is your quiet player who glues the team together, and everybody needs that. And to me, it's almost more valuable. So it'll break my heart to see him play in another jersey. But at the same time, that's the NFL.
I don't know if that's really on the table. I think he's either Bills or retiring. I don't know if he's got it in him. Maybe he does.
Can you correlate the situation to Fred Jackson's?
Yeah.
I mean, because he was in the same vein, beloved by the community here, and then all the way in preseason we cut him, and people get pissed off, and then Carlos Williams comes out 6 touchdowns in 6 games. Fred who?
I don't know if Kyle Williams is in danger. Just from having listened to the end of the season press conference, it seemed like they were like, yeah, we want Kyle Williams back. We'll try to get him back, but we want to let him take all the time he needs to, mull retirement. There's a lot that obviously goes into that. He has to decide if he wants, it's not just he shows up and plays 16 games. It's like he has to go through training camp and off-season workouts and whatnot. There's
the man has
a lot
kids.
that goes into it. And he has I think he has 5.
Yeah,
he's had 5 kids.
He has kids. He's got family that doesn't live here in Buffalo with him. I don't believe so. I think his family, I remember him saying on the radio once that his family stays in Louisiana, at least for the last couple seasons.
I'm honestly not sure. I'm not going to pretend to know.
So,
I know for a fact he owns a house in my cousin's neighborhood.
All right.
So
then maybe he does, but the fact remains is that his future here is cloudy at best. And
here's a question, I guess. Do you, he would be Eric Wood is there still, but like he would be sort of the last or one of the last with because Eric Wood is still there. The drought era players, like the drought era leaders, at least, like the Fred Jacksons and the Ryan Fitzpatricks and like the Eric Woods, and does that make you worry about like the attitude or like who's going to carry the attitude, the leadership of the locker room?
Somebody else is going to have to become that culture carrier, and I guess
you'd have to give it to Eric Wood.
Well, but can Eric Wood be that guy? And that's going to be the hard part without him. That's the thing people don't see. And I think a lot of fans don't think about. They think about, I love Kyle Williams because for everything he means, because he's been here for so long and he's just a household name. What you don't see is what goes on behind the scenes until this season. This is the first time you've really seen Kyle Williams at the forefront of that. What is that worth? How much are you going to miss that, and who steps up to fill that void? That is going to be one of the biggest storylines going into this offseason. I guarantee you. Who is going to fill the leadership void on this team? Because,
assuming he doesn't come back.
Well, but even if he does, people do need to start stepping up around him because, eventually the torch will get passed.
Right.
It's just a matter of who wants to take it. That's it. Somebody has to want to be that person. I mean, you've got guys who are supremely talented like Mario Williams, who anyone who's ever played with him has flat out said he's not that guy. He's not vocal in the locker room. He kind of keeps to himself.
Right.
He's sort of a selfish dude. And it's played out that way through his career when you watch him. I mean, he's just not the guy. He can go out there and make splash plays for you, but he's not a leader. And we need to start identifying who on this team is going to become the leader. Who are going to be the guys who pick up and keep things moving when these old guys age out and disappear.
I mean, who are your captains? Kyle Williams might not be back. Tyrod Taylor, we'll talk about that, I'm sure. Doesn't look like he's going to be back. Lorenzo Alexander, 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. Eric Wood got an extension. And Steven Hauschka. But is Steven Hauschka really your leader?
There's going to need to be a leadership turnover in that locker room.
I would pass that on to Eric Wood. And then you're going to have, I think.
He's already a captain, though.
Yeah.
But
he's going to have to take over, like, what Kyle Williams' role is on the team.
But my point is.
From a leadership standpoint. But I think you need to draft that person. You have to draft.
See, and maybe that's what it is you got to go draft a guy who you think can come in and be that, someone who can inevitably over the course of the next season or two really step up and step into your team and bring that. And you maybe even have to look to free agency and say, look, who are some of these guys who can come in and fit our culture and can bring that elder statesman kind of a feel to our locker room. Like I said, this is a big storyline that I think, even though it's an underrated one, is going to be worth watching heading into the offseason. Another story that's going to have to be looked at going into the offseason. Richie Incognito has again been accused of racism.
Please refrain from using ethnic slurs.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm okay with the idea of just throwing that kind of stuff around, because I'm not. What I'll say is this. Richie Incognito was accused by Yannick Ngakoue from the Jaguars of using an ethnic slur on the field against him specifically. Since he made that claim, multiple teammates of Richie's have come out to support him. Deion Dawkins, Eric Wood,
who play next to him. Literally right next to him.
But even more telling about this, there's Jaguars linemen who are pretty much mum on this subject. Now, I'm pretty sure if my teammate was disparaged in a way that hurt his feelings to the point where he felt like he needed to air it publicly, and I heard it, he's my teammate. This is my guy. I would go to the mat for him. I would come out and publicly support him in this. The fact that no one's done that so far, I don't know how far this claim actually goes. It just sucks because out of all the people for it to happen to, out of all the people to be accused of something like this,
of course it's him.
Who is the guy who has a track record that kind of flows in this vein?
I read on Pro Football Talk that the accuser, he did a way better job pronouncing his name.
Yannick Ngakoue is a tremendous player.
He
He's
is
only
fantastic.
22 years old, so
you
don't know him, trust me.
I read it on ProFootballTalk.com. He said he couldn't remember if Incognito said the N-word.
Use the N-word, yeah.
So
bring that up as well.
What other word is... How harsher can you get than the N-word? Because if he doesn't remember that if Incognito used the N-word,
I had a moment.
I don't believe his claim.
What are you remembering?
Well,
I guess is what.
I just look at it in terms of this. The NFL is obviously investigating it. Brandon Beane was asked about it probably 5 times today during his press conference. They're basically saying they're doing the diplomatic thing. You know, Beane has said, hey, we support every player on this roster. And until something is brought to me that's concrete, you know, we're going to continue to go through the investigation. We'll look into it. The league is going to look into it. Like I said, it's just one of those things that's a giant distraction from, I mean, again, things that detract from what is otherwise a fantastic season are stuff like this. I don't need that. But then again, Incognito is one of those guys who has a track record, so it's easier for people, because I've heard people from other fan bases already talking trash and passing judgment on the guy. And that infuriates me because you don't know him. You don't know the way he's been here in this community and the way he's been as far as a Buffalo Bills player. I can't speak to what he did in the Miami Dolphins.
Right.
Since he got here, he's sounded, and you hear it from his teammates, He's been nothing but a professional.
I don't know if you saw the feature on NFL Countdown on Sunday.
Yes.
About the Bills, the bonding thing,
Yep.
the McDermott thing. Lorenzo Alexander said that he hated Richie Incognito.
He was on his top 5 least favorite players in the NFL.
Not at the top, he said.
And he said
he got here and met him.
And started playing with him and working with him and seeing how he is every day. I think Richie has this perception that he is the guy who he used to be, admittedly. He used to be this hard-partying, very crass individual who wasn't culturally sensitive or really sensitive to anything anybody thought. Which, when you're a big, nasty offensive lineman, I mean, we're talking about a lineman who got ejected from a game by his coach for throwing a helmet at him on the sideline. This is the guy we're talking about.
He had some anger issues.
He's got some fire to him. But having said that, I still believe that this will be resolved, and I think that he's going to be exonerated of this. I firmly do.
As he should be. If the dude said,
I don't care about whether he can remember it or not, Chris. What I think about is that if nobody around there can point to him and say, I know exactly what he said, I just think that this is a situation where, yes, he has a reputation that does precede him, and so he's going to be looked at. And you know what? You should be scrutinized. I say that anybody who has a reputation has one for a reason. You should be looked at maybe a little bit differently. But knowing that, everyone needs to be fair and wait for this all to be worked over before passing judgment on the guy.
I guess that's what I'm saying is, like, unless some sort of, audio comes out where some player was mic'd up and they find out, what was actually said.
Video review and microphones, they're everywhere.
What are you going to prove if you don't have that audio?
And that's the one thing, and I hate I don't bring up anything politics and I don't bring up race. Those are two things that I don't bring up on this podcast because it's a breeding ground for arguments. Ultimately, you're talking about a guy who I myself am half Puerto Rican, okay? And I grew up in a town, this podunk farm town in the South Towns, right outside of Buffalo, New York, where people maybe aren't the most sophisticated individuals on the face of the planet. Maybe don't have the most progressive views in the entire world.
You have to include yourself in that.
I've been called a lot of things over the years. I understand it. I don't think racism's funny. I don't think it's a laughing matter. I don't think it's a joke. What I will say is the same thing I said about people calling the front office racist when they bench Tyrod. Most of this stuff doesn't involve race. In this instance, they're saying it does. Until it's proven, though, I'm willing to at least hold. I'm not going to pass
benefit of the doubt.
I'm not going to pass judgment one way or the other until this thing plays out. So everyone out there with your hot takes and he should be cut immediately and you need to calm your ass down. Now, on the flip side of that, you know who didn't calm their ass down this weekend was Bills Mafia. Because while Incognito was being accused of racism, Bills Mafia was accused of causing anarchy.
Anarchy! 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 I don't even know what that means, but I love it!
The Jacksonville local media tore Bills Mafia apart. Radio shows, news articles, complaining about what a blight we were on their city. You would have thought that the locusts from the Ten Commandments had moved in and ravaged their city. I mean, they I don't know what. I guess I don't understand.
Because you weren't there.
Yeah,
no, because I wasn't there.
Greg, you were there. Did you see this?
I was there.
So Greg, one of the things that I love about having you here tonight, you were there. You were in attendance for the game. I mean, we're going to go into a lot more detail in a little bit, but I got to say, these claims of the fact that we trashed their city and we left it caused mayhem, and there was anarchy, and cats and dogs sleeping together, mass hysteria. Like they paint this picture like it was fire and brimstone, some real Old Testament stuff. What was the reality of the situation? Can you shed some light on this one?
I don't know if it was that bad, but I guess I'll get into this part of my story at least. On Saturday night, there's Bills fans everywhere. Just everywhere. In every bar around, down by Bay Street was the street near Everbank Field. There's bars everywhere. Jacksonville Landing is a place. Wing It is the Bills backers bar out there. Wing It, I guess, ran out of beer.
And got shut down by the fire marshals.
And was shut down by the fire marshal due to overcrowding. So there's that. I can't comment on Jacksonville Landing because I wasn't there, but I do know that it was packed because I've seen pictures.
Well, I guess my question...
people that were there.
So I guess my question is, though, when you were there, did you witness any of the rowdiness that they're accusing us of?
Let me get into that. Okay.
Outside of jumping through tables.
Well, hang on.
That's what we're known for.
But here's what I want to compare it to.
It was next level, though, Chris.
Okay, well, this is what I was going to ask. Was the stuff that was going on that they're accusing Bills Mafia of, was it anything that you wouldn't see on a Sunday here tailgating for the Ralph?
It was just like that, but like I said...
They took it up a notch because
it went up a notch. Okay, here's what happened. Saturday night, we're talking to Bills fans, and everybody's like, what's the plan tomorrow? And we got word that it was Lot X, and people are throwing up the X like Des Bryant and everything. Like, see you in Lot X tomorrow. And we're like, okay, whatever. Well, I didn't get up super early because my hotel is a mile from the stadium. I was obviously going to walk, even though it was, honestly, it was, I saw it on the Jacksonville News, coldest week in 8 years in Jacksonville. Hilarious.
We brought it with us.
Obviously in Buffalo.
We brought the home field advantage with us.
Well, or so we thought. But anyway, so I'm getting up. I don't remember what time it was exactly, 7:30 or 8 a.m. And by 8:30 a.m., I'm hearing through Twitter and through other people that are there that they had to open Lot X 2 hours early, or it was supposed to open at 9, and it ended up opening around 7:30, I guess.
Because they were blocking traffic.
The line was there were so many cars that they were blocking traffic. They couldn't turn them around because there were so many. And then people from the restaurant across the street were coming out and directing traffic. And the owner of the restaurant was like, no, you guys can't do this. You guys can't direct traffic. We don't have insurance for that and everything. So they called the police, and the police just, okay, whatever, let them in. I guess that's how that worked.
Who the fuck opens a lot at 9 a.m.?
That's when the Bills parking lot opens.
See, Chris, that's why my parking lot directly next to Lot 1 is the tits, because I get there at sometimes 5 in the morning.
Okay, so Lot X was essentially a stadium lot.
Yes.
I guess it's a stadium lot. There was a sign for it, Lot X, so maybe, sure, maybe. Anyway, I get in there at like 10 a.m., and it's nuts. Just nuts.
Was it a circus?
Bills fans. It's all Bills fans in there. Maybe a couple of Jags fans here and there, but we had all heard, like I said the night before, Lot X. So all the Bills fans are in Lot X. And I'm looking for people I know, slapping people up and whatnot. But, and there's obviously a lot of drinking going on. Trash everywhere, as you might see in a regular Bills game. But then by 11:30 or 12, guys just started jumping off, jumping through tables. Tables were coming out of boxes in the plastic wrap, getting set up and jumped through.
Well, but and to this, I will say this about that. Jacksonville, the people who make these decisions are just fucking morons. When Jacksonville made the statement that no one with a,
I don't know if that was true.
With an honest, okay, but the fact that you made the statement that you didn't want retailers selling tables to anybody with an out-of-state ID, and you made that public knowledge that you didn't want this to happen, don't poke the bear. If you hadn't done it, you maybe would have seen 10 to 15 to 20 really drunk people jumping through tables, trying to get their videos on Twitter.
Instead,
guess what? You poked the bear. And now you've got guys who are literally filling trucks. I saw the video. There was a guy who sent out a tweet responding to the tweet showing the, whatever the request to not sell the tables. The guy literally tweeted back. He goes, I have a flatbed, and I'm going to bring them all with me. And he bought 200 folding tables and brought them all with him.
Did you see the picture of somebody who checked a table on a Southwest
Yes,
flight?
But this is my point. Jacksonville, if you don't want it going on, when a child is throwing a temper tantrum, what do? You ignore them. You don't, because if you pay attention to what they're doing or the shitty behavior of theirs, they're going to keep doing it because they know it's getting a rise out of you. So instead of ignoring it, you poked the bear and you kind of got what everyone expected.
What you got was, honestly, before I walked into the game, was an assembly line, basically, of people jumping through tables. Just people standing on cars, crowds, cell phones everywhere. People just, whatever, like they're body surfing or crowd surfing tables into this circle, just setting them up, getting jumped through. People doing backflips, front flips. Some
like
people,
a scaffold match.
Some people, 2 people I saw jumped off of a Winnebago through a table.
Jesus.
So it was, the lot was a total mess.
The lot was
I can only imagine if the Bills would have won, I would have went right back there. I'm sure everyone would have went right back there.
So these claims that we really did trash their city, I mean, I'm sure they're somewhat exaggerated, but you're telling me that there is some truth to this.
We trashed a parking lot. I'm not going to say we as I'm a part of that, but sure.
The Bills fans in general showed up and made a mess, but so it was essentially though
maybe the area.
But it sounds an awful lot like a game day on steroids to me. Like, okay, yes, everyone's excited because it's a playoff game.
Yeah.
Well, of course you're going to get that kind of acquisition from a fan base where their stadium has tarps in their stadium that are rented out as ad space.
Yeah, I mean,
they didn't know what was coming to
20,000 away fans will do that, and I guess especially Bills fans were especially unruly. I mean, that's just it's just who we are.
It's
apparently, I don't think it's. I'll be honest. You will never see me do that. You will never.
I'm not jumping through a table ever.
You don't see it in my parking lot where I tailgate. I don't see any of that stuff. What I will say is that as a city, Jacksonville, you kind of brought the table thing on yourself. You did that. I mean, yes, the morons who killed brain cells jumping through these tables maybe broke themselves in some places. They were ultimately they're responsible. But you kind of didn't help the situation any. And at the same time, these claims that the people were starting fires and that there was trash everywhere. Walk around New Era Field after a Bills game. There was garbage everywhere because that's a football game. That's tailgating for a football game. This idea that everyone's going to calmly and carefully pack garbage. I try to. I mean, you come to my tailgate, I've got garbage cans, I've got recycling cans, I've got a setup that's pretty legit. But at the same time, not everyone subscribes to that, and I'm not here to tell anybody else what to do or how to party, all right? At the end of the day, I think it's all overblown, and I think Jacksonville, I'll see you guys in hell, all right?
And by hell, we mean next season. We play them.
I mean, it's Florida. Like, I think that's what they look at. Like, we live in Florida. We don't really go to the games. There's other things to do and stuff like that. They don't understand.
So they've never seen a bloodthirsty mob.
Exactly.
A foaming at the mouth,
or a
ready
playoff,
for football mob.
Playoff football thirsty mob. Yeah.
Show up and get hammered and start making some craziness. Oh, man. I don't know. It's nuts.
I did ask one of the there was a Jags fan in the bar before the game, and I just asked her, I'm like, hey, are your home games, are they like this? And she goes, no.
No. They've never seen anything like this. We brought the show to town. They should be thanking us. And so, it's official. The day is here. Locker cleanouts. And McDermott and Beane officially closed out the 2017 season today with the season-ending press conference. There's a lot to take in here. I mean, there's a lot of vanilla stuff. There's a lot of bad questions, honestly. When I hear some of the local media ask questions, it's like I get why you have to show up here and do it, because this is your job. At the same time, why do you bother asking a question that you know they're not going to answer? Why do you word questions in such a way that they know flat out they shouldn't answer it? Just get a little bit more creative, or at least give us some substance that we can listen to. There were nuggets. I wouldn't, you're more than welcome to go to BUFfaloBills.com and listen to the interview in its entirety.
It's a half hour.
I did. It's a half hour. There's a handful of nuggets in there, though, that I thought were most important, and I'm going to bring them to you here. But again, feel free to go listen to the entire thing. First and foremost, both McDermott and Beane tried to drive home the idea that this season, the team really, they felt, kind of took a step towards defining itself as far as the type of football team they want to be. There was ups, there was downs, but they were resilient, and they came back. I mean, you're talking about a team who went 5-2, then lost 3 of the most devastating games I've ever watched in my entire life. We set a franchise record for points allowed in 3 consecutive games. and then bounce back with a huge road win over a division winner. This team defined their idea of mental toughness, togetherness, playing as a team.
I think that's what we spoke to earlier with Lorenzo Alexander not liking Richie Incognito and this whole thing about McDermott bringing everybody closer together.
Yeah, so and they spoke on that a lot. I mean, that's something, again, if you're really interested in going to check it out, I would listen to the interview, but that's one of the things that they both tried to drive home that I thought was important. Now, here's one of the most interesting nuggets out of the entire thing. There was a lot of questions, obviously, about Tyrod Taylor and the offense and, what's going to happen to everybody involved with the mess that was our offense this season. And this is the quote from Brandon Beane.
We're not satisfied with the whole offense. It's not, and it wasn't just about Tyrod. There's a lot of hands in the cookie jar, so to speak. And, Sean and I, we're going to talk about everything. And we know we have to get better on offense, on defense, on special teams. We are far from a finished product. I don't know if you're ever going to hear us say we're a finished product.
Now, you listen to him. He says a couple great things here. And I'm going to pick this apart. I'm going to start with what he finished with. He will never say that they're a finished product. That echoes what McDermott said after week 17 when he found out that we were going to be a playoff team and they were doing his post-game interview. And McDermott was very reserved. For a guy who just made the playoffs as a rookie head coach, it was almost like he wasn't excited. But to hear him say it, he says, look, this is a nice thing. It's a good thing for the city, for the players. We aren't as a team where we need to be, but this is certainly a nice step. A nice step? We made the fucking playoffs. People here lost their minds. And to see Sean McDermott just look at it as, we touched on it last week. He didn't approach it as, hey, look what I did. He approached it as, hey, you hired me to do something, and I think I did my job.
And when you say that, I feel like you're kind of poking Rex a little bit. Because Rex would have been like, look what I did.
That's what I said.
I got you guys here.
I said that Rex would have demanded his own statue right out next to Ralph, outside of the stadium.
Yeah.
McDermott looked at it as, hey, I'm
not done here.
I did the job that you paid me to do. I don't think I did anything special here. You need that type of mentality if you want to be better than mediocre.
He was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Yeah. So to hear that from both Brandon Beane and him, I like that. It's a unified front on the fact that you aren't satisfied with just, hey, we snuck into the playoffs. That's good. It's good moving forward for the entire franchise. Then to hear his comments, he specifically says, hey, everyone's going to ask questions about Tyrod Taylor. What are you going to do with him? Have you decided if you're going to cut him or not? Obviously, it's 2 days after the season ended. Nobody's prepared to make that call. At the same time, he makes a point. He could have just said, hey, we're evaluating everything. We'll make a decision. You guys will know when we know. Instead, he made a point to defend Tyrod and say that there's multiple moving parts to the disaster that was the Bills' 2017 offense. That is important to me. Why? Because, to your point, Greg, we were talking before we started recording. He could have given a vote of confidence to anybody. He didn't say anything about our offensive coordinator. Okay? He said, hey, you can't pile this all on one guy because there's multiple people involved with this. Who are those multiple people, Greg? It's got to be Rick
Any
Dennison.
coaches, yeah.
It's got to be the coaches.
Really, but primarily him, the play calling, the quarterback.
To know that they see it in that light also makes me feel better heading into this offseason.
Don't forget, Rick Dennison wasn't their first choice either.
No.
Mike McCoy was their first choice.
Who is also out on the street right now looking for a job.
Who is on the street right now. And now the Panthers come through today. Fire Mike Shula.
And Ken Dorsey.
Who obviously Sean McDermott knows and Brandon Beane probably knows pretty well. So that might be something that they take a look at because how can anybody, I feel like in the Beane quote, he said, we know we have to get better on offense. But then it's like, oh man, I feel like towards the end, he's like, I probably should say defense.
I should probably say everything.
And here too to make it look like I'm not throwing somebody under the bus the way he answered the question, they do a lot of deflecting and
that's
whatnot,
all you can take away from these press conferences. So what you have to do is you have to take their vanilla responses and just try to read what you can between the lines. For me as an educated fan, I look at that response and I say, you know what? He's not going out of his way to defend the offensive coordinator. And he makes a point of saying it's not just Tyrod. Okay? Because you know that's going to be the question. Oh, Tyrod struggled. Tyrod did this. Tyrod did that. He made a point. He didn't come out and say, oh, we love Rick Dennison, or he didn't come out and say, it's all Rick Dennison's fault. But he also didn't say it wasn't. And he also made a point to highlight the fact that Tyrod Taylor didn't have a bad season on his own. Okay, that's not how it happened. The fact that he says they're going to keep working towards this, and he made a comment that, hey, when we're done with this press conference, we're going to get to work on this. I firmly believe that there are changes coming, whether it's roster turnover, whether it's coaching staff changing. There are changes coming to this team, and it's exciting because this is, for the first time, I feel like we have a GM and a coach who are on the same page.
I think they know what they're doing.
It's incredible just to see to see and feel something that looks more like blind faith. Before you just had to trust that maybe Whaley knows what he's doing. Does he? I have no idea.
Another telltale sign sort of in the press conferences, they were asked about how, pertinent, time was as a factor in making those decisions. And Sean McDermott agreed that it was a factor. He's like, there's families involved in this and everything, and it's, a new year and whatever. So it made it seem like it sounds like he's going to fire somebody. That's just how it sounded to me. I could be wrong.
There are changes coming, guys.
My question is, if you're going to fire Dennison, what kind of effect does that bring on the position coaches? Your quarterback coach, wide receivers coach, tight ends.
And this is the point, is that if you're going to make changes, but the draft is coming. If you're going to change offensive coordinators, you need to do it quickly because the draft is coming. And if you're going to take a look over the scouting materials that are being brought to you from a year's worth of work from your scouting department, you have to know what your offense is designed to be, what your vision of an offense is going to be. Like I said, stay tuned, Bills fans, because there is going to be some changes coming here, and they're going to be coming soon. So, guys, there's a lot there. Go to www.BuffaloBills.com if you want to listen to the interview in its entirety. But we're going to move this thing along here right into wild card. It still feels cool to be able to say that we're recapping a wild card playoff game. Oh, my God, it feels good.
For the very first time.
For the very first time on the Rockpile Report podcast. Wild card matchup recap. Jacksonville Jaguars 10, Buffalo Bills 3. We're going to kick it off with the stats of the game. Blake Bortles, 12-23, 52%. 87 yards passing, 1 touchdown.
I'd like to point out, that's less than a football field.
88 yards rushing, and a 75.8 QBR. Tyrod Taylor, 17-37, 45%. 134 yards, 1 interception, 27 yards rushing, and a 44.2 QBR. LaShawn McCoy, 19 carries, 75 yards, 3.9 per carry, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 44 yards. Leonard Fournette, 21 attempts, 57 yards, 2.7 yards per carry. Punting, 17 total punts for 746 yards.
Quads for days.
Lorenzo Alexander, 7 tackles and 1 sack. Now, Greg, one of the big reasons we had you on the show tonight was to talk about your experience just with the wild card weekend. Your trip to Jacksonville, the whole 9. So this is where we're going to kick it off. First and foremost, who did you travel with and how did you guys get there?
I traveled with, technically, I guess you could technically call him my boss. I work for him in 2 different companies. But we ended up flying into Orlando and driving from Orlando to Miami. It's about a 2-hour ride. Rented a car in Orlando. Drove, I said Miami, to Jacksonville. It was about a 2-hour ride. We spent Saturday night in Jacksonville. Went to the game on Sunday, and Sunday we drove back to Orlando and spent Sunday night in Orlando and flew back Monday, Orlando, Buffalo.
My question would be the atmosphere of the airport, in Orlando, because I'm sure there are a lot of
Bills fans
that had to fly into Orlando.
Did you see a lot of Bills fans in the airport?
Oh my God, so many. the flight. Okay, I went to the airport on Saturday morning. It was a 10:45 a.m. flight from straight Buffalo to Orlando. I think I'm pretty confident. At least I only walked down the one side of the airport. If you ever been to the Buffalo airport, there's gates on both sides. But I went to the right, and the only gate that was full was Buffalo to Orlando.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. So,
well, wait. Was there a shout song on the airplane?
Not on an airplane. There
Damn
was a guy with a Steelers shirt on that the flight attendant was giving him a lot of flack.
Good.
For being a Steeler guy.
Absolutely.
You know, everywhere you go, there's somebody wearing a Steelers something.
Are they playing this weekend?
Don't
Take
remind
it
me.
off!
I remember 2004 when people were driving up to the Mighty Taco window after we lost to the Steelers, and they were just driving up their Steelers gear just to razz everybody who worked at Mighty Taco, and I threw a bag of burritos at a guy, and then told my boss that he could fire me if he wanted to.
Did he?
No, he put me on me on rotating the cold stock. That's what he did. He goes, get in the freezer. I can't have you anywhere near anybody today. You're an animal. So the Jacksonville area. Now I've got to ask, what was it like being in Jacksonville, Florida? I've never been myself, but I did see a tweet. For those of you out there who are listening to the podcast who are familiar with the show Stranger Things, this is a tweet that I saw that made me laugh my ass off when I first woke up on Sunday morning. From Netminder97. I'm at a Waffle House in Jacksonville at 3 a.m. Can't lie, this place reminds me of something out of the Upside Down. I gotta ask, worst things. Now I've heard that Jacksonville gets a rough reputation. What was it like being there in person with all of this craziness going on around the city?
Man, it's difficult to explain. I feel like I kind of alluded to it earlier. It was just, there's Bills fans everywhere.
So we really did just move in and take over the city.
That's what happened.
The city as a whole, though, would you say it's a nicer place? Would you say it's I'm sure it's like any city. It's got its nice spots, and then there's, Buffalo has some areas that I
lived in Atlanta, I drove to Jacksonville for a concert. It was a Saturday night concert, and so I left midday Sunday morning in August, and I was in like Jacksonville Beach, and so I specifically just took a detour to drive through Jacksonville because I'd never been to Jacksonville. I just wanted to just drive through the city and look at it. I saw no one. I saw homeless people. It was just a straight up ghost town.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I probably didn't get a fair opinion of it because there's a football game going on, a playoff football game going on. But I would go back.
All right.
I don't know if I would go back for vacation, but if the Bills play in Jacksonville, I would go back for sure.
So then the game day experience. You got in the stadium. You told us about what it was like in the parking lot. You get inside the stadium. Was the Bills' presence in the stadium notable?
Definitely noticeable.
Okay.
Especially because where I was sitting, I was in the 100 level in the corner, and I feel like that's where a lot of the Bills fans were. Obviously, up in the upper decks as well.
Yep.
But I think
obviously because that's where you can slide down a railing and fall off. First.
You could also jump in the pool. There were people in the pool. It was about a 50-degree day, but there were still people in the poolside cabanas up there.
Jesus. So the crowd noise. Did Bills fans who traveled make their presence felt when it came to crowd noise?
Maybe if you were looking at the stats, you might be able to say that because both teams really didn't throw the ball very well. It was loud. I guess the one thing that actually irritated me was the Jaguars, whoever's got the aux cord, playing great music, by the way. It's all hip-hop and R&B, which I know that you had your own opinion on Kendrick Lamar's halftime.
That was Chris. I will give it all to Chris. That was Chris. Chris,
that guy's a fucking scrub.
For everyone who follows us on Twitter, Chris tweeted out last night after the halftime show of the national title game that Kendrick Lamar was 2018's Milli Vanilli.
He lip-synced the whole halftime show.
I don't know.
I never heard of the guy.
I don't know what either one of those things are. I mean, I've heard the name Kendrick Lamar. I tried watching it. I tried watching the halftime show, and I couldn't understand anything he was rapping about. But everyone in the crowd seemed like they were having a good time. So my response was, I put on some Wu-Tang and some Onyx, and then just drank my beer and cursed young people, like old cranky men are tended.
Old cranky guy, yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't know, if you like hip-hop and like old school hip-hop, Kendrick Lamar might be the closest thing to it. Anyway, what I was getting at was the Jaguars, who had the aux cord or whatever you want to call it, was playing music while the Bills were at the line.
What?
Which I can't
feel like
be
that's
allowed.
illegal. I feel like that's illegal.
Multiple times it happened. The Bills are at the line. I don't know if they're pointing out, but they're clearly the huddle is broken, and there is still music playing.
Wow. That reminds me of the
bothered
game.
me.
That reminds me of the game where we kept blowing the horn when the Patriots were trying to approach the. That was back when Rex was our coach. It was the first Patriots game here in Buffalo, and they kept blowing the horn even after the huddle was broken. And as Brady's trying to make his line calls, they kept blowing the train horn.
The train horn, right?
But to be playing music, that's pretty sloppy. Now, as far as games flow goes, nobody likes going to watch. There's a handful of people out there. Like, if you're the guy who liked to be, like, if you're the type of person who could go to a game like we saw on Sunday and be excited and just be super pumped up about what you're watching on the field and keep that intensity level up for 4 quarters.
There was a guy
You're the same person who goes to a baseball game and gets super pumped up about a pitching duel where nothing goes on and the game just seems to drag on forever until everyone's dead.
When I lived in Atlanta, that seemed to be the only Atlanta Braves games I would go to were pitching matchups. But like you said, nobody likes watching a punt festival. There was a caller to WGR last season that called into a post-game show and literally had a stopwatch out, clocking Sanborn's snap time.
Oh, my God.
So that guy probably had fun watching a punt festival.
Whoever you are, you need more hobbies, and you need to spend more time on Pornhub. Ultimately, I mean, a game, 17 combined punts and almost 8 football
13
fields.
combined points.
Almost 8 football fields worth of yardage on punts alone. That is not a recipe for a great football game.
I guess it was the lowest combined score in playoff history.
So what do you think? So being there in the stands watching this punt festival, was it hard to keep the energy level up as you're watching it? I mean, I feel like that would kind of put, if I was there and if I wasn't at home, that kind of atmosphere might put me to sleep.
I guess what I thought is I felt bad for people watching it on TV, maybe that weren't Jacksonville or, Buffalo people, because
just teams who
it's
people
the only
who just
game.
wanted to
It's
watch
the
football.
only game on.
Yeah, football fans probably took it in the shorts on that one.
That had to be tough. But to tell you what, being there just because it was a playoff game, I was nervous. I was kind of like doing the leg jiggle and everything. I was just because it was always a game. The game was always within reach. So I never really, I never really lost interest. I will tell you that like there were certainly some boring parts of it, and it was kind of hilarious to watch Blake Bortles consistently throw passes 5 yards downfield and still miss people. So I mean,
we had a conversation like I think right after the game had ended, but because you were still so upset that we had a chance to win it and we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple chances. And you were kind of saying like I'd almost rather be blown out than lose this way. I would rather lose this way. Because if we were blown out, then the rest of the country gets to see what an embarrassment we are. We had the game for the taking, and we had a bunch of missed opportunities.
And speaking of missed opportunities, that brings me to point number 1 when we recap this football game. And it starts with Rick Dennison, my new public enemy number 1. This is what Sean McDermott had to say after the game.
Well, you look at playoff football, it's usually tight margins, and so you can't beat yourself. We had some situations today where we had, opportunities to move the ball, and we hurt ourselves. We hurt ourselves at times with field position, special teams penalties. And then when we get in the red zone, we got to score touchdowns.
Post-game interview, BuffaloBills.com, Sean McDermott.
AKA, we beat ourselves on offense today.
If the last 2 minutes of the first half doesn't make your blood pressure spike to a level that might kill anybody over the age of 55,
I'll tell you what.
I don't know. I don't know that you know how football is supposed to work.
When Jacksonville punted and gave the Bills the ball back, maybe at the 8-yard line with like a minute and 12 left, they still had all their timeouts. I turned to my buddy next to me. I had a couple Bills fans around me too. I'm like, is there any doubt this game is at least 3-3 at halftime? Like, there's no way the Bills are getting out of this with the lead. And then, I know you'll get to Dennison, but not that the second down play was really his fault. Because Deontay Thompson drops it. He probably should have caught that, and maybe that would have, Jacksonville would have had to use a timeout. The third down play, Zay Jones goes out of bounds before the first down, so Jacksonville doesn't have to use their timeout. So, I mean, a field goal just seems all but certain at that point.
But this is my point.
Go ahead, let it out.
Okay. I'm going to try to be constructive here. Going to try to layer this out instead of just screaming into a microphone and chugging this beer. To say that Rick Dennison laid an egg, he laid a fucking omelet with all of the fixins. All of them. I'm talking extra bacon with sauteed spinach and mushrooms, all right? I hope that it's the final game of his Bills tenure. I really do. Between the 40s, his play calling wasn't so bad. But it seemed that over and over and over again, consistently, when the ball was either near field goal range or deep in our own end, the guy just couldn't play call. I'm going to give you two egregious examples of this. And we're going to start with yours. The final possession of the first half. It is a widely understood tenet of football that when you have the ball deep in your own end and you know that you can't score and you're trying to run out the first half, you're going to spend as much time as physically possible, and if you have the opportunity, take away the other team's timeouts, just to leave them as little time to operate with on offense when they do inevitably get the ball back. Okay? That is one of the basic tenets of football. That's not
even the base fan like myself that doesn't know the X's and O's of it should know that. Oh, we're at the 8 with a minute 15 left in the first half, and they have 2 timeouts left. Well, let's just run the ball so they have to burn timeouts.
I'm curious to finish your point, because I the first down play they ran, and Jacksonville burned a timeout, which I didn't really have a problem with. The second down play was a pass that should have been caught in everybody's defense, should have been caught. It bounced right off Deontay Thompson's chest.
But I have a theory about this.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I want to hear it.
So this is it, but hang on. The decision to throw the ball those 3 times, damning in my mind. Unforgivable. I mean, you do these 2 plays happen. Now they have 2 timeouts and a minute left. A minute! And you're punting back to them.
I think they took 15 seconds off the clock.
That's it. You had the ball, and in a must-kill-the-clock situation, you did the opposite. You preserve clock.
And timeouts.
And then, the decision, and this ties into my theory on Dennison, and you're all going to have to follow me here. The decision to throw the ball 3 times from the goal line. Isn't this the exact reason that you have a guy like Mike Tolbert on the roster?
I'm glad you said that.
Moments where you need a guy who can fall forward and get a yard.
A bruiser, yeah.
Or who can break some minimal contact, or even contact at all. He's our guy. He's the running back we have that can break contact.
I completely agree with that. Fans have really ridden Tolbert a lot this year.
But this is what you
that's
need
what you
him for.
If you're not going to use him there, where are you going to use
him?
him?
Then why is he here?
Exactly.
Oh, to run on 2nd and 25? Are you fucking kidding me? So
you also have Kyle Williams. Don't forget about him.
That play,
but we were on the 2.
That play selection in that moment right there is a perfect example of Dennison thinking that he can simply outsmart teams instead of just calling the right play and trusting his offense to execute it. Now, this is my theory on Rick Dennison. He's a Mike Mularkey. He's a guy who realizes that, yes, I don't have the world-beating talent on my side. So I'm going to have to get creative in some spots as far as how to manufacture offense. The problem is it goes 2 ways. And it was a friend of mine at work said it to me. If you're going to outthink yourself, if you're going to outsmart yourself, and you run a Mike Martz, highly complicated offense, and you end up you make the offense so complicated that sometimes it's a little difficult to execute. But you're throwing exotic looks and you're being proactive on the offensive side. You're trying to give defenses, trying to keep them guessing. I can forgive the occasional lapse in judgment. When you run what is essentially a high school offense at this point, and you're still outthinking yourself and tricking yourself into calling bad plays, I don't know that you can call yourself an offensive coordinator in the NFL.
I'll tell you my least favorite thing that they do or did a lot, I feel like it was a lot this year, is if you're throwing on first down, you throw an incomplete pass, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It happens. Handing it off on 2nd and 10 is my least favorite thing you can do.
That's it. You've already committed to throwing. You need to throw again.
You've committed to 3rd and long. Like, statistically, the best case scenario, really, is 3rd and 6, because you're probably averaging about 4 yards a carry, maybe 3rd and 5. Like, that is telling me that you're okay with 3rd and 6. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, do they realize that you don't have to use all 3 downs to get the first down? Like, you could just pick up the first down on 1st or 2nd down. Like, you don't have to, incomplete pass, or like throw a 2-yard play here, a swing pass to McCoy here, and then we'll get the first down on 3rd down. Like, just
I got to work and
be a little more aggressive.
I was being critical today at work and, just complaining about it. And I brought up the fact that I drew out the play. Someone said to me, "Oh, well, you think you could do better?" And I immediately was like, "Okay, well, here's what you could do. You could set up in an offset I formation, Tolbert in the backfield, fake a pitch out to McCoy because you know with McCoy on the field the defense has to be focusing on him.
Or at least respect it.
Fake the pitch out and give the handoff up the gut to Tolbert from a yard away from the end zone and hope he can find a crease while everyone's moving horizontally to just fall into the end zone.
And this is why your company's finances are in the tank.
Our company actually just came off of its back-to-back best years in company history. Oddly enough, coinciding with me working there.
Yeah, and you're drawing up plays on a friggin' whiteboard.
No. So I brought it up while I was at work, and I said, listen, this is a thing that I did this because somebody questioned it. So I brought it up today at work, and people seem to be receptive to it. My point is that if some asshole with a beer in his hand in Buffalo, New York, who's not getting paid to do this, can come up with that idea, why can't the guy who's making probably a little over $1 million to do his job, why can't he do it? Now, on Sunday, if you had asked me what I thought about Rick Dennison immediately after the game, I would have told you that he belongs in Guantanamo Bay with a view of the ocean. That's it. That's what he deserves. Today, I'm not quite so pissed off about it, but what I'll say is that over the course of the year, not everything he's done has been complete shit. His scripted drives are actually pretty good. Our first half scoring has not been bad. But when you're an offense that ranks 22nd in fourth quarter scoring, 26th in second half scoring as a whole, 27th in total points per game, and 32nd in passing yards, it is clear that the performance of the key people on that side of the ball, and I'm not just saying it's his fault, he has an underwhelming cast to work with.
Sure.
But
he can't be held responsible for the throws Tyrod doesn't make.
Exactly. But the fact is that you somehow managed, you and him together. Tyrod, under any other offensive coordinator, I mean, you look at what he did last year with Anthony Lynn and Greg Roman. He managed to make our offense a top 10 offense in the NFL. We were the number
scoring
one
offense.
Scoring offense. We were one of the number one rushing attacks in football for the last 2 years.
The number one. Yeah.
You have the same personnel but a different offensive coordinator, and now both of you are being exposed at quarterback, at offensive line, and at OC for the subpar products that you all are. And that's my point. These guys are not, I think we can all agree, and I think the national media will agree, when you post a 44 QBR in a 10-3 football game, you're not an NFL caliber starter. I mean, I heard a lot of people recanting.
When you throw for 134 yards on 37 attempts.
Yeah, you're not an NFL caliber starter. And when you allow a team to post those kinds of offensive statistics, you are not an NFL caliber offensive coordinator.
I don't know that this is totally true. I haven't looked this up, but it sounds right. The last two teams to lose a playoff game to a quarterback who threw for less than 100 yards
were the Bills.
Are both the Buffalo Bills.
The Bills have lost 4,
and it was their last 2 playoff games.
The Bills have somehow set this obscene record for losing to quarterbacks who don't throw 100 yards. I saw the graphic. I wanted to throw up, and I opened another beer. Ooh, all right, folks. That's the last of the negativity you're going to hear out of me tonight.
No.
LaShawn McCoy, Iron Man. When McCoy arrived here in Buffalo, a lot was made about the fact that, not just about the fact that we traded for him, but that we threw a ton of guaranteed money at him in order to try to placate him, because he was very disgruntled to have been removed from he's a Pitt guy. He's a Philly kid. He's playing football.
Pennsylvania guy, yeah.
Pennsylvania guy. He's living and playing in the city that, he grew up around. So he was obviously not content to be shipped off to Buffalo. We threw a lot of money at him to make him happy, and there's a lot of people who didn't like the idea and still don't like LaShawn McCoy for what he is going forward. I mean, I know for a fact that there is a Facebook group chat out there full of mopes and asshats who can't agree on what his actual value is. I know this for a fact. On Sunday, LaShawn McCoy earned every single penny of what we gave him and probably then some.
And you know what? It's funny. I think when they initially signed him to that 5-year deal when he first got here, I thought it's probably done after 3. I think that it'll be 3 years and he'll be gone. It's been 3 years. I do not want him off of this roster next year.
The fact that he refused to take the painkiller, he refused the cortisone shot, the painkiller shot, because he was afraid of reducing his ability to try to cut on a sprained ankle. and he played through that sprain just to try and give his team a chance to win, that's fucking incredible to me. That's heart. That's a dude who wants to win. And he doesn't just want to, you hear him talk about it after the game, he was angry. There was a lot of players who were like, hey, this was a right step. This was a good move for us. Hey, this season was a step in the right direction. LaShawn McCoy wanted none of it. He was like, no, I came out here to win. Mm-hmm. I wanted that game against New England. We played him pretty well the last 2 times we played him, and I thought we'd have him this time. To hear that come out of his mouth, that kind of fire, that mentality is the killer instinct that our offense doesn't have right now. But it's the thing that we need. I think that we here as Bills fans are incredibly lucky to have LaShawn McCoy in a Bills uniform.
See, I don't want him gone because we don't have anything behind him. Oh, Mike Tolbert, ooh, that's something we're going to need to get something behind him. That's something we're going to have to address either in free agency or the draft.
I don't want to say that I'm sure they won't get rid of him because I was pretty sure they wouldn't get rid of Sammy Watkins too, but I feel pretty confident that he'll be here next year just because, he accounted for 33% of the team's
yards. At this point, he can have whatever he wants to stay. I'd give him an extension. I would. I'd throw more money at him. You know why? Because he's worth it. He's a gamer. He's a guy who came out here with an ankle sprain and decided to be the only part of our offense that we could rely on. It's incredible to me that there's still people out there who doubt that.
What running back in the league is definitely better than LaShawn McCoy?
I don't know.
Is there anyone that's definitely better than him?
He finished number 4. You're talking about a guy who finished 4th overall in rushing. And again, he's been the focal point of the number 1 rushing attack for the last 2 years. You're talking about a guy who's he got here. He probably wasn't happy to be here, but when he did, and he got into this locker room, and he got with this, especially this year with this staff and this team coming together the way it did. That's heart right there.
He's just a guy. He loves to compete. He loves to win.
Oh, he'll fight. And that's the thing. He'll play anybody anyway.
As long as Rex, as well as McDermott, we're both like, you're our bell cow, man. This is your show, and that he loves that. That's what he wants.
Oh, he gets off on that.
Exactly.
And then our front seven. Their play. Coming into this game, the ESPN said that since they had started utilizing what they call the Football Power Index,
not to be confused with Football Power Rankings.
Football Power Index is how they have all these different metrics that they track.
Sort of like PFF.
Team to team to team. And then they put them together and it gives them their proprietary system as far as how to project what a team's percentage of victory. Expected, percentage that they'll win a football game. This wild card matchup, no matchup in the history of wild card games was ever as lopsided as the Bills versus the Jaguars. 82% favorite to win. Jacksonville was. And yet that thing was a fist fight until the bitter end. And I credit our defense for that.
Well, look, all you got to be is the best team for 60 minutes.
That's it.
That's all. I don't think
all your previous statistics go out the window in the wild card.
I don't even.
That's what I love about the playoffs. That's why I was happy that we were here because you can take our stats when you look at our run defense is 29th in the NFL. Well, yeah, because we let that Saints game happen. That Saints game kicked us back 20 spots in the rankings.
The one thing I said was the point differential, the 5th worst point differential of any playoff team in the modern era or something like that. Okay, it was minus 57.
We had a stretch where we got blown out of every
minus
game.
67 in 2 games.
Exactly. So all of those statistics go out the window, and it's one game. It's one game for the rest of your season. May the best man win.
And then you're tied at halftime, so then it's just 30 minutes. You know what I mean? You just break it down like that.
Here it is, 30 minutes.
Just be better than them for 30 minutes.
Go fight for it. And I'll tell you what, our defense did, and that's why I told Chris, the reason I hated to lose the game the way we did is because we wasted what was an amazing performance by our defense. Yes, Blake Bortles was probably the 12th man on the Bills on Sunday. He missed a lot of passes, a lot of shallow passes that were thrown behind wide receivers, out in front of wide receivers, over them.
With minimal pressure.
Yeah, with minimal pressure. But you look at the performance of Lorenzo Alexander. 7 tackles and a sack. He was in this game, and he had a couple.
He was the best player on defense.
He had a couple hits that were just monstrous. I mean, you could tell the defense got amped up the way he was smacking people around. That was a vintage Alexander game, and everyone fed off that. Everyone kind of flowed through that kind of mindset. One of the scariest things about the Jaguars offense, and the reason everyone thought we were going to get blown out, was because of the presence of Leonard Fournette. We held him to 2.7 yards per carry. And it's not like they went away from the run. They tried to feed him the ball. He just couldn't get anything done. Because our defensive line, our front seven has not been stout against the run this season. Anybody who watched the Saints game can tell you that. Having said that, they came into this game with the idea of we are going to stop them from running the football. That's absolutely what we're going to do. Now, in the second half, the X factor was no one expected Blake Bortles to take off and run the ball.
That's what I was going to say. It's the number one. What was the number one weakness all season? Run defense wasn't the weakness all season. The number one weakness all season was pass rush.
Yes.
And they you know who led the Bills in sacks? Jerry Hughes with 4. You know who was tied? Shaq Lawson with 4.
Yeah.
Shaq Lawson missed a bunch of
Meanwhile,
games
Calais
towards the end of the
Campbell
season.
has more than all of our defensive line
There's like 4 guys on Jacksonville that has more like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I will say that when you think about what we have and what we accomplished on defense in that game, our cornerbacks took their wide receivers away. Nobody got easy. No one got open easy.
what was the longest pass play? 16 yards.
Yes, nobody had anything handed to them, and our defense made them fight for every yard that they got.
Except Blake Bortles running the ball.
I can hang my hat on that. And I can say, you know what? One side of the ball showed up today. And that's why I hate the idea that we lost. Not so much even for myself, not for, hey, I could watch another playoff game. The Bills could win their first playoff game. I hate seeing a game that's supposed to be a blowout and watching our defense go out there and sell out. You watch Micah Hyde go out there, concuss himself, come back, go out there, get smacked in the head again, and have to come off the field. It's like these guys are fighting. They're fighting tooth and nail for this. And they did everything well enough to win, and to see it end in a loss was just depressing to me. Like that's the real disappointment in all of this for me, is how hard that defense fought to keep us in this game and to see how little our offense did with it. That's the disappointment. But overall, they deserve to be applauded for that effort. They really do. That brings me to this week's hero and zero of the game. And the zero, as I'm sure you can tell, belongs to Rick Dennison.
You folks fell on your face. You get an F- in my book.
Hopefully this is the last time I have to nominate Dennison for anything on this podcast. Short of who should catch typhoid fever. Like, who should be the leading candidate to get it? Rick Dennison. I'll nominate him for that. That's about it. In a long line of terrible offensive coordinators over the course of the drought, Dennison might actually be the one I hate the most.
Man, I don't know if I could come up with one.
Turk Schoner?
I dislike Turk Schoner, but I didn't hate him to this level.
Yeah, who else?
Nate Hackett. He bumbled his way through his rookie seasons as an offensive coordinator, but I still didn't dislike him to this level.
Steve Fairchild.
I can't think of an offensive coordinator that has made me this angry. And Rick, this is totally on you. And like hey, if anybody out there who's listening to this knows Rick, tell him I'll get the U-Haul. I swear to Christ, I will pay for it.
Yeah, let's get a GoFundMe up.
I will come to your house and I will help you pack. Just get the hell out of my city. And then the hero of the game, and that's all of the fans who traveled to Jacksonville.
I'm the greatest man in the world. Woo!
We're talking to you, Greg.
Yeah, I'm included in that.
Those of you who traveled for this game and really what you did, you helped show everybody around the world how much Buffalo gives a shit about this football team. And you helped show an entire city full of transient fans and, fans that don't support their team to a point where they have a smaller stadium than ours and they have to tape off sections of the stadium, thousands of seats at a time, in order to quote unquote sell out. We showed up and we showed them that you have no idea what supporting a team looks like, and you have no idea how to tailgate.
People just believe that, Buffalo, it's, one of the smallest cities in the NFL. They don't really have a fan base. Our parents, at least for me, parents grow up here. You move to Atlanta. You still have that fandom. My best friend growing up, he listens to our show. He went to college in Ohio and now lives in Denver. Still a Bills fan. It's just passed down. You move out of Buffalo, and people don't realize how big Bills Mafia is.
I mean, your fandom never really leaves. But I can't ever leave this city. There's nowhere else I can picture myself living.
I can't imagine missing a Bills game.
Thank you. I mean, Gregg, folks, for those of you who may have forgotten at this point in the show, Gregg is the flag holder down in the corner of the end zone for the Buffalo Bills. When they score a touchdown and you see the flags going across, that's Gregg. Gregg, I can't imagine what being it, because you usually work my section, my end zone there.
Your side, yeah.
I look for you every time we score. I'm like, there's Gregg. He's loving it.
I just look for the beard whenever I go.
I mean, they'll have to kick me out of that job to get me to quit. I can't imagine not being there on a Sunday. I can't imagine not watching them on a Sunday, even if they're, I don't know, 4-11. In the last game of the year, I'm going to watch it. I couldn't tell you the last game I missed. I really couldn't.
Man, that's incredible. Dude, it's just incredible. And it's incredible to think about what this season has done for the fans. Because you and I, Gregg, Chris, we're old enough to remember the golden era. You know, we were kids, but we remember what it was like when the team was good.
Yeah,
I remember they were a shoo-in to make the playoffs every year when I was
Gregg, how old are you?
I'm 29.
29, because you're 4 years younger than me. Because when I was a kid, I'm like 9. I'm like, oh yeah, we go to the Super Bowl every year.
Yeah,
this is
what
the
happens.
third
The
party.
Bills are just
this
the
is
Bills
the
are just
third
rock
party.
stars. It's fine.
The season started and you knew they were in the playoffs already.
This is the third Super Bowl party that I've been to in a row, and we're in it. Like, we make the Super Bowl every year.
So I'm glad that kids who maybe didn't grow up with that are getting to see it now. Maybe they're in their teens, maybe they're in their 20s, and they're finally getting to understand what it is. So we're going to take a look back. I just want to walk through this all. 2017, in review, this was a franchise redefining season for the Buffalo Bills.
We hope. I think you're right.
I mean, well, follow me through this. It starts off with just a preseason that was loaded with change. The season started off explosively. Rex Ryan fired in week 16. And we needed somebody to fill the role. Anthony Lynn got a crack at it. The team let up a touchdown off a kickoff where players didn't know that they needed to touch the ball in the end zone. Guess what? He's not our coach.
I totally forgot about that.
I will never forget about that. That's our butt fumble.
65-yard onside kick.
That is our butt fumble.
Oh, my God.
That is our equivalent of the butt fumble. And then Sean McDermott shows up. And while many of us were excited, we played the clip last week from Jerry Sullivan.
Uninspiring.
He called the pick uninspiring and said it was just another Bills pick. He's a horse's ass.
I mean,
we
pretty
can all
typical of him. I think
we can all agree that he's a horse's ass, but I mean, even just downplaying and disparaging the pick and there was no hope. You were like, oh, okay, we're trusting our franchise to just another guy. It's another guy that has no resume, that has no background as a head coach.
I guess the eyebrow raiser for me was like everyone sort of seemed, I don't know about everyone, but a lot of the media seemed like this is Anthony Lynn's job to lose.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And then for them to go to Sean McDermott, it's like they must have really saw something in him.
He blew the Pagulas away.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, he collaborated with then GM Doug Whaley in free agency in the draft. And out of that was born 4 high-ceiling starters. Poyer, Hyde, Dawkins, and Milano all came out of that.
And Milano, you hated.
I hated the pick. I hated the Zay Jones pick, and I hated the Dawkins pick. I hated the Trey White pick. I hated everything about this draft. Guess what we found out, folks? I actually may not know what the fuck I'm talking about. That draft has caused me to question everything I know about evaluating a draft, evaluating draft picks. I'm now questioning my own abilities.
What would you like about Tre'Davious White? I loved Tre'Davious White coming before we even picked him.
Greg, I'll tell you right now. Drew hated that we picked Trey White because
I wanted
Reuben Foster was still on the board.
Shocker. We pick an LSU player over an Alabama player, and Drew has a conniption.
So
of course he does.
So
4-year starter in the SEC at corner.
So
of course he's good.
Yeah, at DBU.
So all of this happens. Then all of a sudden, Whaley was fired, and lo and behold, one of McDermott's previous, I don't know, maybe a little connection, a friendly face, Brandon Beane is hired as GM. Beane was born and bred through the Carolina Panthers organization and decided that with his ownership situation kind of tenuous, he said, Brandon Beane went on to say in an interview with, I can't remember what local news outlet, but I'm sure you can find it. He said in the interview, they asked him, why would you come to Buffalo instead of staying in Carolina where you were a shoo-in to be the next man up when David Gettleman got fired? Which the interview had taken place right after he had been fired. They're like, that could have been your job. And his response was, well, the ownership situation is fluid because the kids don't want the team and the owner's not going to be around forever.
Which is more true than ever now.
And his thing was, I like knowing who I'm working for and knowing that the people I'm working with have a common goal. And we have a common vision and that we're all on the same page. That's why he left Carolina. Not because he was afraid, not because he didn't think he'd get it, but because he said he looked at the situation and saw, shocker, the Bills as a more stable option than a team like the Carolina Panthers, who were just recently in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. Now, they got together, wasted no time in discarding all of the mistakes of his predecessor. He traded Sammy Watkins away in a move that will go down as one of my favorite of the entire offseason.
It's crazy. Here's what it is. It's like fans, this drought happens. You fall in love with players like Sammy Watkins and Stevie Johnson or like Scott Chandler, just to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
CJ Spillers and Fred Jacksons. It's like, you want change though, right? They all clamor for change until it hits like one of the players they like a Sammy Watkins.
And then people scream about it.
But he defines an era of losing, basically.
I mean, Greg, for Sammy Watkins, we got back EJ Gaines, who we've talked about on this podcast before, given the statistics. Our defense was drastically different with EJ Gaines on the field versus off the field. We gave up almost 100 more yards of offense per game without him on the field.
And a 56 overall pick now.
And the highest return in the form of a draft pick that any wide receiver has gotten in the last decade. That's Randy Moss. That's Anquan Bolden. There's multiple talented Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers who have been traded for less than a second round pick. We got a starting cornerback and a second round pick. And yet people lost their shit. This is why I like doing this. It's an exercise in reflection. Look at what happened. And at the time, everyone thought Rome was burning. We traded away Ron Darby, a cornerback who did not like the scheme. He was not buying in. We brought back a wide receiver that we desperately needed. And we got a third-round pick back, which eventually became it was a third-round pick that we traded away to get Kelvin Benjamin, who is a number one wide receiver. This is the stuff I'm talking about. He got rid of Reggie Ragland. I loved Reggie Ragland as a linebacker in college because I watched his entire career. He could stop the run like nobody else. And yes, maybe even if he was a Brandon Spikes, I will tell you that the guy had pass rush ability and he had run stopping ability.
I haven't seen him a couple times. He still looks like a pretty decent player.
Yeah,
for Kansas City.
But he didn't fit the scheme, and they made a decision. Hey, we can get a pick back for this. Ragland's going to be a decent player, but they still moved on from him. And then Marcel Darius on Halloween, that weekend, they got rid of Marcel Darius, and I was sick to my stomach about it. And our run defense plummeted immediately.
I know, we gave up, 88 yards to Blake Bortles?
I remember.
But these were moves that this GM took a look at the roster and said, I have to do this because this is these are all reasons why this franchise isn't going anywhere. They're anchored with salaries paid to guys who can't earn we talked about it in an episode probably a month ago. Defensive tackles who are paid over $100 million. You make that much money because the market says that's what you're worth, but you don't play a position that ever lets you actually validate that contract.
And there was a clip, we didn't play it, but it's on BuffaloBills.com in the press conference. He talked about responsible spending.
Yes.
So he looked at Darius as irresponsible spending.
Yep. And got rid of him as soon as he could.
Right. And he talked about, they're not afraid to spend, but they're not going to go out there and start chasing guys. So that's where, things like, I don't know, I feel like Kirk Cousins is going to be a topic of conversation in the offseason for the Bills. So maybe they're willing to pay for Kirk Cousins, but I'm just using it as an example, by the way. But they're not going to go out there and chase. Or maybe like a Star Latulaway. Somebody they have. We talked about defensive tackles getting paid the last time on the show. That might be a player they're interested in, but they're not going to go chase him.
Nope. And so, just that fresh approach to the offseason. I mean, Fans all over the country railed against these moves, claimed that they were the moves of a franchise that was tanking, and that this roster, with all of its unknowns and all of its flaws, couldn't win more than 4 or 5 games. And that we were so talentless that my producer over here, Chris, told me every fucking week that we should tank for a better draft pick.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is. I honestly believe this we're going to get to it in the offseason. This quarterback class coming up, I believe, is going to be the best quarterback class since 04 with Big Ben, Eli, and Phillip Rivers.
Well, I don't. But
JP Lossman.
I don't care about any of that though, because
I forgot he existed.
Then the season started. The real bullets started flying. And yes, we were Jekyll and Hyde during the regular season. I mean, the roster surprised everyone. We went 5-2 through that first month and a half. Both losses came within a single score. Okay? Fans started to take a step back and respect the holistic approach that McDermott was bringing to things. I mean, you look at what he did. He just said, hey, I have a process. You never saw him get high. You never saw him get low. McDermott was McDermott. He clapped a fuck ton on the sideline, and he seemed just very middle of the road. And even to this day, he is. You know, in that wild card game, I didn't see him lose his cool. He stayed very middle of the road.
Everything he says in all his press conferences is just straight coach speak. He's a master of the coach speak.
I mean, I'll tell you, at 5-2, everyone in this city was buzzing. You know? Even the biggest pessimists were realizing that this team had already won more games than anybody thought that they would win.
And the 2 losses, Carolina and Cincinnati, at that point, what can you attribute those to? This is maybe your buddy.
At least Carolina.
Right? At least Carolina.
When your defense is giving you a chance to have 1 more drive or 2 more drives to win the game, it's on your offense to get it done. And they didn't.
They were 5-2, and both of those games they lost were winnable games.
Think about it. If they had won those and we were 7-0,
slow down.
This city would have burned to the ground at that point.
Yeah, we would have probably tried to end the season right there. Hey, look, this is random. I'm just going to throw this in there. The Green Bay Packers just hired somebody as their defensive coordinator. You want to know who it was?
Who?
Mike Pettin?
Mike Pettin is the correct response.
Wow, Mike Pettin, a blast from the past.
See, I saw he was interviewing. I figured
apparently they're going to hire him. Schefter says it.
Wow. Well, see, so we went 5-2, everyone's high, and then the nightmares started. That's where this... the Bills went from 5-2 to setting a franchise record for the most points.
That's when Tony Romo and Jim Nantz stepped in. Because the Bills were 5-2, and then they lost 6 games after that this season. 4 of those games were broadcasted by Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson.
A 3-game span where we had 3 straight blowouts. Jets, Saints, and Chargers. And in the Chargers game, McDermott showed the fact that his balls should go in a wheelbarrow. Like he needs them. Because he benched Tyrod Taylor. Peterman threw 5 picks. The game was a disaster. And by his own admission, though, you know, they asked him. They said, hey, what about the Peterman thing?
Like, well, it happens. Yeah, basically.
No. He admitted that in the ESPN thing over the weekend, they asked him about it.
That it might have hurt the team.
And his response was, immediately after the game, he called a team meeting. And he addressed it with the entirety of the team.
Owned up to it.
And made it an open forum. Anybody who wants to say anything can say it. Here's your forum. You want to I fucked up? Do you want to talk to me about it? Because I'll have the conversation with you. As a coach, he wants his players to have that with him because he talks about it, transparency and vulnerability. He wants them to know that, listen, I'm going to take accountability for the things that I do wrong, and I'm going to do it to you. I'm never going to talk down to you. I'm never going to say, well, I'm the coach, and that was a coach's decision. He's going to explain to you exactly why he did it, and if you have a differentiating opinion, you can bring it to him, and he'll listen to it.
While that move backfired on him, I'm just going to say this, and you can say whether you agree or disagree. I think this season played out perfectly for Sean McDermott with the little speed bump in there that was Nathan Peterman. Because I don't think he really wanted to keep Tyrod Taylor, but the way he was preaching about the type of player he wanted in his locker room, Tyrod Taylor fit that mold to a T. Like, Tyrod Taylor's a guy, gets there early. They even mentioned it in the press conference, the end of the season press conference, like how hard he works and how much he wants to get better and tries to get better. But ultimately, what he did was get the Bills to the playoffs, show that he's capable of doing that, got this drought off of their back so they can operate like a real team from here on out. And Tyrod Taylor was terrible in the game. So now nobody's going to blame him if he gets rid of Tyrod Taylor.
But so this is it for me. Like you said it. He's going about things. He has a plan.
It's a process. Get it right.
The process. Hearing what I heard from the ESPN interview, it kind of reframed the conversation when you look at what happened after that, though. Because think about it. We hit that 3-game skid. I said it. On this show, I stopped talking about the playoffs. We used to do a playoff update, playoff picture update. And the day after that Chargers game, I said I wasn't talking about it anymore. And I got real emotional because there's a listener to our show, Jason, who he's terminally ill. And he and I talk on Facebook, and it just crushed me. Watching him be so optimistic, even when we were getting blown out by the Chargers. And at the end of the game, he just sends me a message. I'll never forget this. And he just, random message, hours after the game was over, I'm drinking a beer. I'm crying in my beer, just being, just like I usually am after a Bills loss like that.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this is 2011 again. 5-2, and we're in the hole.
I see this Facebook message from him that just says, I just want to see them get one before my time runs out. And it broke my heart. And I was like, this can't end this way. It can't. This can't keep happening to people. It can't keep happening to us. It can't be.
It can't be the stigma that is the Buffalo Bills.
Now, looking back at it and hearing this story from Sean McDermott that he chose after that game to hold this town hall meeting with his players and talk about why he replaced Tyrod and why he did it. And if anybody had anything to say about it, here's your open forum. Let's clear the air and let's move forward as a team. They go on the road the next week to the Kansas City Chiefs, a division-winning team. Everyone called it a blowout loss. Kareem Hunt's been running all over teams all season long. Their offense has been putting up crazy points, and the Bills shut the Chiefs out in the first half. That's a resiliency that we haven't seen from a team from the Buffalo Bills. When things go bad here in Buffalo over the last decade and a half, there's a slide and they just snowball and it goes.
Pun intended.
McDermott got out in front of it and found a way to stop it and turned the team around. Said, look, guys, I made a poor choice. I fucked us in that game. Guess what? I'll own it, and I will do better as a coach. Yeah.
And they went 4-2 down the stretch, as a team, losing only to the New England Patriots.
4-2 down the stretch. I mean, this is the period of time when the team normally craters back to earth, wrecks their record, ends up with a mediocre draft pick, and we're all left wondering why we're doing this. And instead,
See, I didn't think we would have had that game against Kansas City because you play division in your conference. Who do we play? The West. We played the West, and then you play whoever you finished with from the previous season. I didn't think we'd have that game against Kansas City. Like, this is a conference win. We need this. This is a game we'll probably lose.
Absolutely. They found a level of resolve that we haven't seen in over a decade from this football
Because that might have
team.
been the nail in the coffin.
Absolutely.
Going to 5-6, that probably would have been it.
And then you look at the dramatic finish that this season had. The final week, the tiebreaker scenario for the Bills were incredible. There was so many different permutations of what you could do, how the Bills could get in, but they might not if this happens and if this happens differently. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we were all glued to it. Mm-hmm. 4 teams that could all finish 9-7 and with different outcomes for the Bills with every single one of the different scenarios.
4 teams did finish 9-7, I believe.
And we did not control our own fate. That's the thing. We went into this knowing that we had to win and we had to get lucky. Chris and I were sitting in my basement, and I turned on the Chiefs game. And Larissa asks me about, not the Chiefs game, the Bengals game.
Bengals-Ravens?
Bengals-Ravens. I have 2 TVs. One TV's and the Sunday ticket. One TV is Bengals-Ravens. One TV is the Bills game. As soon as the Bills game became a blowout, I switched them so that we could listen to the Ravens-Chiefs game. Why do I keep saying Chiefs? Bengals game. So I'm watching this happen, and Larissa goes, "Hey, well, maybe we should switch one of these TVs to the Titans game." No, there's no point, because the Titans and the Chargers are not how we're going to get in. We are going to live and die by the outcome of this one game, and I know it. I know it in my bones that this is the game that we need, because I can't trust both of these teams to lose. I need this one team to go down, and I need the Bengals, who have seemingly nothing to play for. I need them to step up.
Now, Greg, with watching that game, I'm sure you watched that game live, and then with all the videos that you saw the week leading into Jacksonville, please tell me at some point, even if it was the Ravens and Bengals game, or if it was watching one of the videos during the week, please tell me you cried at some point.
I don't know if I actually had
I question
tears.
your fandom.
I don't know if I had tears in my eyes. I'll tell you what, when I watched when Tyler Boyd scored that touchdown, I put my hands over my head and I just like laid back because there was just so much like adrenaline and emotions that I couldn't deal with them all, and I just had to like lay down and close my eyes. I did not know what to feel. I did not know whether to feel like, I was obviously overjoyed. I was still a little nervous because there's 45 seconds left in the game, and like I have to watch the end of this, which ended up, being nothing, which is not typical of the Bills during the drought. Is like
the wrong thing always happens.
It was on 4th and 12, and it's just like I overcome with emotion.
I'll tell you, overcome with emotion. See, and this is why, Greg, you and me are like polar opposites. You're a very composed guy. You're more of a centered. You like,
but intellectually,
sometimes
intellectually,
more on the
you
quiet
guys are
side.
the same.
But
not during the games, really.
No, I'm an animal. I admit that. I lose
guys,
all sanity.
You guys both have the same football mindset. Yours is just more of an attacking, I'm correct kind of way. You're more of a conversational style of speaker.
Well, when
it
real
comes to
football's
football.
on, I'm pretty much just angry. I'm angry. There's a lot of adrenaline going, but the only way I can express my energy is through just like I have to move. I have to be doing something. So when we got that, I mean, he has the video. I come bursting out of the bathroom because I sequestered myself like a Bronx Tale because I was the mush. I came shooting out of the bathroom, and the first thing I did was I grabbed my fiance and I picked her up, and I literally ran a lap around my basement, carrying her around the basement, just yelling because I didn't know what to do. I had all this energy and I didn't know how to get it out. And then I cried. I don't know when it started. I don't know how it started. I just all of a sudden realized I was crying. Like halfway into me crying, I realized it was happening. Somehow this underdog football team that had this specter of almost 2 years of just failure hanging over its head.
You mean 20? Not 2.
With the deck stacked against them. 2 decades.
2 decades. Sorry,
2 decades. No, 2 decades of failure. All of a sudden, you're thrust into the playoffs because of the arm of Andy Dalton. And you're there. It's New Year's Eve. You're rolling. It was just such an emotional thing. And I know that you saw it. Anybody who's been on social media has seen the outpouring of support and emotion from this football team against insurmountable odds.
My favorite thing
found a way
of the reaction videos is, I'm sure you guys have watched tons of them. When Tyler Boyd catches that pass, there's this celebration. But when he turns and scores, there's just all of a sudden this mayhem ensues. And that is my favorite part of every single one of those videos.
See, my favorite part of that is there's a video of Kyle Williams watching Boyd catch it.
Yep.
Yeah. And his eyes light up. And then he almost starts crying instantly when he scores.
Yes. I mean, I instantly started crying.
I bawled like a baby. I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Don't be ashamed.
I fucking cried my eyes out. It's incredible that and then we go into a wild card game, and even though we are the biggest underdog wild card team that the league has, apparently ESPN has ever seen, we slug it out with this team and lose by a single touchdown. It's incredible. I mean incredible.
The number one takeaway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, that a team that everyone thought was going to tank, a team that everyone was, hey, we're playing for a top pick in the draft. There's too much pride, there's too much passion, and there's too much on this team.
Try to tell people they weren't rebuilding. They're rebuilding, but like not in the sense that the word rebuilding is used. People look at the term rebuilding and they're like, that means you're bottoming out. Like, no, they're just out with the old, in with the new. That doesn't mean they're going to be bad. And, the number one takeaway, I guess, from this year is that, for me, is that like this black cloud is gone, and they can now operate without having to think about that, without having to answer any questions about the drought. The drought is over. It's dead. It's in the coffin. It's buried. It's 6 feet under. They can operate with like a real team. Like, okay, well now what do? We get better at quarterback, or maybe we adjust the offense. Like, so what? Doug Whaley was obsessed with this kind of year, with getting into the playoffs in week 17 and maybe getting pummeled. We didn't end up getting pummeled, but like maybe getting pummeled in the wild card round just to get rid of that. And it was irresponsible of him, and it cost him his job. And this regime, it just feels different. It could be 18 years before they make the playoffs again, but I would not bet on that. I think they know what they're doing.
To me, what I think is that this team that was everyone preseason, I shouldn't say everyone, 50-50 split of the fan base. Half of you guys thought that this was a team looking to finish in the basement of the NFL. And you found out that this new coach and this new GM brought just a renewed, an energy to this group. Enough to break the drought and re-energize a fan base that desperately needs it.
Think about on the surface how stupid that sounds. Like a guy, Sean McDermott, granted he got what did he get, 6 years? I believe he got a 6-year deal. Maybe 5 to coach. I definitely 5 or 6. So, I mean, he's got to look at it like he's going to come in here and lose on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I don't think so.
He's come here to show everybody what he's capable of as a coach. And he absolutely did that. My hat's off to him. I'll tell you, guys, Chris, beer up.
Yeah, Mountain Dew up, I guess.
Yeah, that's my
Empty
thing.
Mountain
2017 was a hell of a fucking ride, and I can't wait to 2018.
Let's go.
Cheers! Woo!
Let's wrap it up.
Folks, we have to finish this podcast off with the first ever Rockpile Report Awards. Now, this is a superlative kind of a thing. We're going to go, we've got some different categories, some different, games.
How are we going to do this? Are we going to, does everybody want to just answer it individually, or do you want to agree on it?
My answers will probably be the shortest because I attended.
We can give short answers.
Because
we're running a while anyway.
Yeah, we're at like an hour and 40 minutes here. I only attended 2 games, so anything that is you had to be there, I was only there for Denver and Oakland,
right.
which we both won. So,
all right.
So
So I'm going to
since we made the playoffs this year, you're welcome. It's because of me.
It's because of you. So we're going to kick things off. Now, best game witnessed in person. Greg, what do you got?
Indy.
The
snow, man.
The Snowvertime game. I agree.
That was so fun. Don't tell me it wasn't fun. It was a blast.
Folks, you don't know.
I only have Oakland and Denver to choose from because I think Derek Carr is an elite quarterback. Okay, he had a down year.
Oh man,
he
most predictable thing ever.
Yeah, the best game witness because I thought we had no chance in that game, and we slaughtered Oakland.
I mean, Oakland being bad was predictable. They got lucky so much in 2016. Like it was just obvious.
Folks, for me, the Snowvertime game makes the best game witnessed in person, and I'll explain it to you like this. There are games that you are going to grow up, like sporting events, not even just games like football games. There are events that you are going to tell your children about, that you're going to say, hey, that you're almost proud in a primal sense. Like you're almost proud to say, hey, I'm that guy. I toughed it out. I'm proud to say that I was one of probably 20,000 people who stayed until the very end of that football game. And I'll tell you this, it hurt every step of the way. I was cold. I was wet. I don't advise anybody ever try it. But I'll tell you that it's one of those moments you will never forget what that moment felt like. To me, the Snowvertime game was absolutely it. Now, worst game attended in person.
It's easy. It's Denver because it was hot as shit.
That's not even close. I'll tell you, I went to 3 Bills games this year where the Bills scored exactly 3 points. So it's tough for me to pick. I was in Carolina. They lost 9-3. I was in Jacksonville. They lost 10-3. New England at home. They lost 23-3. And I'm not gonna pick any of those. I'm gonna pick the Saints because it was just that terrible.
Agreed, sir.
And they should have scored 3 points in that game. They got a garbage touchdown at the end.
We have a consensus. The worst game attended in person for me was the Saints game. When you allow a team to run the ball like that on you, to the fact that they're setting NFL records,
Drew, let's be honest.
Franchise records.
Drew, let's be honest. You love that game from a fantasy standpoint.
Oh, from a fantasy standpoint, I blew out my opponent.
Drew Brees.
So what I'll say is that this was one of the few games where some fan interaction didn't involve.
Bottom
me
line,
leaving
a guy
the game.
named Trey Edmonds ran for a 47-yard touchdown against the Bills.
It was one of those.
He's a real player, apparently.
I left early, as did Mario Granada and Rich
Man
Meister.
bun Mario.
And we all left early. I kind of forced their hand because I told them, listen, I got your stuff. I'm leaving. I'm fucking out of here.
We out.
I've never left a
I don't
game
have
with
that
more
option.
vitriol than that. In fact, I'll tell you, I left the game. Mario left a 12-pack of beer in my truck. Coors Light. So it's like bottled water. And
are we going to have that on the Sunday drive?
so I opened a can of it to drink the beer as I was driving out of the parking lot. And as I did, a bunch of people in Tampa Bay jerseys were flipping us off and honking their horn. And I rolled my window down and threw the open beer at them. That's what kind of a day it was. I came off the rails as an adult.
I had to run with a flag while the Bills were trailing 47-2.
Oh my God. Okay, you maybe got the worst end of that because you were on the field. Now, game with the most annoying away fans. Now, for this, you're always on the field for home games, Greg, so you don't really know anything about this.
I would just say all I can go with is Oakland because their reputation.
But yeah, exactly.
I only went to 2 games,
But I'll say this now, folks. Out of all the games I attended this season, and I'm sure you heard it earlier this year when I said, like Frank Castle from The Punisher, I'm going to find the people in my section who keep selling their tickets. And when I find out who you are, you're going to fucking pay. You're going to pay for this. But the game with the most annoying away fans was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. I left that game early, watched the finish in the parking lot at an RV. The guys gave me free beer and a hot dog. How could I complain? But they asked why I left. 2 drunk, belligerent Tampa Bay fans, which I didn't know existed. You might as well be talking about.
I heard this story.
Western New York Tampa Bay fans. You might as well be talking about fucking unicorns. I didn't know they existed. They sat right behind me. They started out as cool guys, then got belligerent drunk.
I think we told this story the last time I was on the show.
And I had to storm out. I had to because there was no coming back from that. I had to leave or they were going to get punched in the face. And I got to watch the end of the football game from the parking lot, and it ended in dramatic fashion. It was fantastic. But I'll tell you, that game sold me on the fact that Tampa Bay, Florida sucks. Florida football fans as a whole. I know some cool Dolphins fans. Outside of that, everyone else can kiss my ass.
Well, Bob Gutierrez.
Man, I know a handful of
I'm
cool
going to go Patriots just because I had to hear so much about Tom Brady.
And then the most satisfying win. Greg, what do you got for me?
Atlanta.
Nailed it. Atlanta, because I live there, and that city fucking sucks.
For me, guys, it was the Broncos game, and I'll tell you why.
Why? Because they went 5-11?
Because I
felt like they had arrived.
Because I endured. I'm a fat man. When I say a fat man,
I can see your tits from here.
I'm not morbidly obese.
You used to be a fat man.
I'm not even what you would call obese, like clinically. Like I'd like to think I'm not fit by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I've got a spare tire. It's pretty apparent. So, being in an environment where it's 97 degrees and there's no shade and there's no breeze, I sweat more during that game than I think at one point I fist pumped and some sweat flew off my arm and hit the guy in front of me in the face.
It was so hot.
And he looked at me and I go, I didn't spit on you. And he goes, I don't feel good about it either way.
I was on the field, man. It was so hot.
And the fact that we won that game made me feel vindicated for sticking it out through the toughest game. I mean, I got into an altercation in the tunnel going to get water where I was letting guys with kids cut me in line because I'm like, Jesus Christ, why do you have your 10-year-old here? Get in the fucking line and get some water. You're an idiot. But I made sure to tell them that they were stupid. You have 5 kids with you.
You tend to do that.
You're stupid. Get in front of me. You need to go. So I'm doing the right thing, but also just letting them know that they're idiots. And somebody behind me yells, Hey, you better stop letting people in the line. Hey, knock it the fuck off. And I had no patience. I'm sweating I'm greasy like Slimer from Ghostbusters.
Little angry, yeah.
And I'm shirtless, and I turn around, and all I yelled through the concourse was, if you don't shut up, I'm going to drop my pants and hug you in front of everybody in here. And the whole tunnel went silent for a few seconds. And I'm like, that's it. That's how you win an argument. I'm so gross. I don't care about being
people with
awkward.
hugs.
I don't even care about being awkward at this point. It's so goddamn hot.
I'm just going to pick Atlanta because they were in the Super Bowl last year and we were on the road, and it was the one game I really didn't think they had a chance in, other than New England. So
That was the first Seagram's bet that you had lost.
Absolutely.
You had
That's the
Atlanta
first
winning.
Seagram's. I had Atlanta beating us.
I knew we would beat Atlanta. There was no doubt in my mind we would beat Atlanta.
good for you, Chris.
Questionable officiating move of the year. The award goes obviously to the overturned touchdown in the Patriots game, right? Around the table.
Yes.
On to the next
Cheers,
one.
boys.
Yes.
Yeah.
On to the next one. Fuck those guys. Rookie of the year.
Ooh.
What do you got, Chris?
I'm just gonna. Everyone's gonna look at Trey White, but I'm just gonna go off the board, and I'm gonna go Deion Dawkins because I think he played everywhere on the line except center. Like I remember
he filled in for Richie.
Yeah,
I remember watching Tampa because Tampa Bay was a home game. I remember watching it, and because I don't know anything about the X's and O's of football, I watched him come in for Richie Incognito, and he comes in at guard, and then the first play, McCoy rips off 15, and I watched the play happen, and I was specifically looking for Dawkins because I knew he'd just come in, and I watched him, and I'm like, he just took somebody out, like pulling.
He just took somebody out
pulling. So they show the replay, and I get my phone out, and I take a Snapchat, and 'cause you can save them. So I take a Snapchat, and I saved it, and I think I sent it to Eric Turner, and I'm like, I'm no chemist, but I think what Deion Dawkins did here was amazing.
I think
he sprang
I think
McCoy.
He's laying. He's going to be the left tackle for a while. I think it's a pretty good pick because I think he's going to be here for a while. I got to go. I want to go Milano, but I don't think he played enough.
So you're going to go with the boy.
I'm going to go Trey White because I wanted him from as soon as the Bills traded back. I'm like, please let Tre'Davious White still be there.
No.
I have
Reuben
tweets
Foster.
to prove that.
Reuben Foster.
You know, I like Tre'Davious White all along, so I'm going to go with him. And he came out graded as PFF's top-rated rookie. I think he should win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think Lattimore will because he got more recognition. But
and his team
Hey, listen,
is in the playoffs deep.
I also picked Tre'Davious White. Let me tell you, in my eyes, this is how I break it down. He started all 16 games, okay? And then even after that nasty-ass concussion, dirty hit by Rob Gronkowski, he still came out and balled the next week.
Yeah.
Balled out. Finished the season with 18 passes defended, 4 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and a touchdown. The thing to me that stands out is that any defensive player can compile stats if you're a bad team. I mean, you think about all the years Posluszny led our team in tackles, but all of his tackles were 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. So what did that actually prove? He wasn't a great linebacker. Not only did Trey White put up stats, but he made so many game-changing plays.
I was just going to say that.
The fumble against Tampa.
Won them that game.
The fumble return against Atlanta.
Won them that game.
The interception against the Chiefs.
Won them that game.
He is fucking incredible for a rookie, and he was the 7th defensive back taken in the draft. He wasn't even in the top 3 or 4.
What's Gary and Conley doing? Is he good?
Thank you.
He's raping people.
No, he's raping.
Whoa. That took a turn.
Allegedly.
Took a turn.
7th defensive back taken in the draft, and yet he has been the most consistent out of all of them. And everyone says, oh, well, Lattimore didn't get thrown at as many times. That's their argument. He didn't get thrown at because quarterbacks...
Don't get me wrong, he's good.
No, his coverage grades are great. My thing is, they kept testing White, and White kept just making plays. Because he's like, well, fuck you. If you're going to feed me, I'll just keep making plays.
Picked off Cutler at the end of the game against Miami the first time, too.
Yeah, if you guys want to go back to last year and listen to our podcast with Connor Rogers from NFL Bleacher Report, Connor Rogers and Drew both questioned Lattimore being a first-round pick.
I did. I said, I don't know what his health... Because he can't stay healthy. And he showed it this year by missing 4 games. Meanwhile, you've got Tre'Davious White.
But while he's in there, he's amazing.
Yeah, but
sure, he's a really good player.
But Trey White was durable, played all 16 games, and was a game changer for us. Absolutely rookie of the year. Now, we've got some MVP awards to give away. Offensive MVP of the year.
McCoy.
For me, it goes to LaShawn McCoy.
Who else could you give it to?
On an offense where not much went right for the team,
33%
McCoy was
of the team
he's
yards.
the only bright spot. Fourth in the NFL in rushing yards, second in runs of 20 yards or more, second in rushing attempts. And even though the Bills led the league in plays against loaded fronts of 8 or more players, he still got 4 yards per carry. He's disgusting. He deserves every bit of everything we threw at him for extra money. He deserves everything that's been given to him. I just hope
including Rick Dennison's contract.
Fire that guy and give him his money. Now on the defensive side of the ball, defensive MVP of the year, I got to go with free safety Micah Hyde.
I was going to say Micah Hyde.
I'm going to go with Jordan Poyer just because.
Like Poyer.
Honorable mention was
sure.
I'm going with Poyer just because last season you said, okay, we signed Poyer. If he's starting, that's a C+.
I gave it a C+.
That's why I'm going Poyer.
I think Hyde is the glue that holds it together.
That's it. Hyde is so good in coverage that you don't want to. He has the speed to take away deep receivers. He has the instincts in the box to be a blitzer, to play the run, to do everything you need a safety to do.
The term people like to use is the quarterback of the defense. And that's Micah Hyde for sure.
And then you throw, but then as an honorable mention, I did put Jordan Poyer here because if I had to pick our safeties, I will tell you that our safeties led this defense. I mean, everyone wants to talk about how, we did all this and, our defense was rated super poorly. But guess what? We won a lot of football games because even though you get a lot of yards per carry, yards per throw, you give up scores, you know what they do is they keep the play in front of them and make you work your way down the field. Nobody's beating them. Very few teams this year through the air took the roof off our defense. Why? Because our safeties, for the first time in a long time, were a fantastic tandem.
You know what's good? If you think about it this way. The Bills have Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, and Tre'Davious White for the next 3 seasons.
Oh, my God. It's disgusting. And you're going to put more talent around him? Please.
Exactly, because
it's incredible.
I think of any position in the NFL, you can never have enough cornerbacks. With the amount of picks that we have this draft,
I think you should always pick one.
We're probably going to take one, so we could add to that.
So now I gotta take a little bit of a darker route here. Offensive and defensive LVP, least valuable player.
That'd have to be the right tackle.
Offensive LVP, Chris, you nailed it. For me, anyway, Jordan Mills.
No, I was more broad. I meant anyone that played right tackle. Fuck off.
In my mind, Jordan Mills kept the Bills from being able to do a lot of things on offense. He did. His presence kept us from being able to run the ball to the right side. When we ran off left tackle, we averaged almost 3 yards per carry more than we did trying to run to the right when you break it all down and look at it over the course of a season. That starts with the tackle. Jordan Mills got by the last 2 years playing offensive tackle in a scheme that was designed with a lot of pin and pull offense. There was a lot of extra tight ends. There was a lot of pulling guards that actually sealed the edge of the running attack. This season, they trusted sealing the edge of the rushing attack to Jordan Mills, and he failed miserably. It's not his fault. He has his limitations as an athlete. Could he go somewhere and be a very good swing tackle? Probably. As a starter, we could do better.
I don't know who I would pick. I guess I understand that. I don't know. I might pick the wide receiver group as a whole just because that kind of falls on Tyrod, maybe even Dennison a little bit.
That's my point.
Your leading
it's hard
receiver
to pick
had
any of those
27
guys.
receptions. Like, maybe bringing in Pat DeMarco. Like, I'm not calling him a bad player by any means, but, like, what did Pat DeMarco really provide you, I guess? I don't know. I'm not really going to pick anybody. I'm just saying who left more to be desired.
On the defensive side of the ball, defensive LVP, this is where I struggled. There's a lot of people who could have qualified for this. Really could have.
You know what? I would probably go Ramon Humbert just because you lost your job to a 6th round pick.
Who's pretty good, though.
He's pretty good.
But how often do 6th round picks come in rookie season?
He was a 5th round pick.
Okay,
you're an idiot.
It doesn't matter. 5th, 6th, 7th, 12th. What player from those later rounds come in and make an impact in the rookie season?
My LVP of the year goes to Marcel Darius.
I was going to say that. I was seriously
See,
going to say
there we
that.
go. See, great minds think alike, buddy.
We're on the same page.
Ultimately, you made yourself expendable. Marcel Darius came out here this season and made himself expendable with 4 tackles and 1 sack through his first 5 or 6 games. And they opted to listen. Somebody else wants him. They can have him and get that salary off my books because I can't justify giving $16 million a year to a guy who's going to get me 1 sack and 4 tackles through 5 or 6 games. I'm not going to do it.
Point made.
It's incredible to me. He put himself in this position for everyone who's mad about it. Now, the big kahuna, the Jackass of the Year award.
You suck, you jackass.
There's nobody I could give this to other than Rick Dennison. Rick Dennison, I will see you in hell. I firmly believe that. Listen, we can pull up lounge chairs together and, I don't know, as we're both baking in the white hot flame, you can explain to me what the hell it was you tried to do this season?
I am going to get him to your wedding somehow.
I hope so, June 9th.
Rick Dennison, you are my Jackass of the Year. Best deed done by Bills fans in 2017.
Easy.
Donations to Andy Dalton's charity.
It's like up past $350,000.
Guys, Bills Mafia, people don't realize this.
The shit's real.
No, this is the city of good neighbors. I said it. I
We're
almost.
not all morons.
I teared up talking about it last week. I mean, I'm an emotional guy for as much as a Neanderthal as I sound like. When it comes to living here in the city of Buffalo, one of the things you get used to is the fact that even if you don't have a ton, if you can help other people, you do it. I mean, one of my first real, I know this sounds stupid, but one of the things that a buddy of mine, Matt, okay? He lived in South Buffalo for years. We go to the old Ward Parade. And there's this family outside selling buttons, right? Crocheted St. Patrick's Day buttons. But they're sending their kids into these bars with cookie, trays, tins, baking sheets, essentially, filled with these buttons. And the kids are trying to sell them for $3 a piece. Matt looked at that. He saw the family outside. He saw the fact that you're sending your children into a bar on the drunkest day in the city. He asked the kid, he goes, how many do you guys have? And the kid goes, I don't know. So he got his brothers and sisters together and they all talked about it and they came over and he goes, oh, we have 60 or 70 and we've got a couple more outside. Matt grabbed us all by the shirt and goes, open your wallets. Come on, let's go. We got to get these kids the fuck out of this bar. Now, I'm in my mid-20s. I mean, I made all right money, but I didn't, you know what I mean?
You didn't have the money to blow like that.
But I ponied up $70 to get these kids the fuck out of the bar. And together, we bought this entire family out of their... And why? Because it's the right thing to do, because those kids... The family clearly needs the money. And they don't need to put their kids... Clearly, they feel like they do. The family as a whole is out here trying to... You know what I mean? They're trying to get by. Mm-hmm. No kid needs to be exposed to that. And Matt knew that. So he kind of forced us all to make the right decision to get these kids home. Get these kids home for the day. Whatever they have out in the truck, we'll buy it all. And I asked Matt, what are we going to do with all these? He goes, I don't give a shit. And he just started throwing them out like confetti in the bar. And he was happier than a clam, knowing that he had done the right thing. That's Buffalo. That's what we're about, is doing the right thing and helping people. So in my mind, watching all these Bills fans pony up money for this charity, I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked. Because this is how people who live here are.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's the Bills Mafia.
That's it.
That's the Bills. It's not people jumping through tables and having sex in the parking lots and whatnot. That's what it is. It's people, putting forth their best effort or, their best foot forward to help other people. The city of, like you said, the city of good neighbors. That's what we do. We help people. And it's not something that we go out of our way to do. It's just another day. Mm-hmm. And we just do it and go on with our lives and do it again when the next time it comes out.
Absolutely. And now, guys, it's time. The crown jewel, the best and worst plays of the season.
All right, I want a 32 belly option on 2-on-2. Ready? Right!
First and foremost, we have to crown the worst play of the year.
Oh, no! We suck again!
Now, there's a bunch that I gave the honorable mention to. I don't know, Mike Tolbert's run on 2nd and 25.
That's my pick. We seriously did not discuss this beforehand, but that is seriously, I have it typed down right here. 2nd and 25 run to Mike Tolbert against New England. Tyrod took a sack, and they handed it off to Mike Tolbert on 2nd and 25.
Nathan Peterman's pick 6 off the hands of DeMarco. Whoa. Any one of Taylor's 500 scramble / pump fake / sack combinations. Any one of them. But to me, the worst play of the year, Kelvin Benjamin's catch from Peterman and immediate MCL tear.
I like that, actually.
We just got a brand new shiny wide receiver from another team. We're like, hey, this is a guy. This is a guy who can go out there and be a threat.
We're starting a rookie quarterback.
We're starting a rookie quarterback.
He was actually not doing too bad on the first drive, if you remember correctly.
And he throws that pass.
And bang.
And you feel the wind come right out of the offense. And you saw it on the field. It took the wind right out of the...
He completed a real pass down the seam to a wide receiver.
And then
bang,
it just all went. It turned into dust. That game, we got blown out. It was... That play, for me, was like a punch in the stomach. In fact, if you told me that you would hit me in the stomach, I'd rather take that over rewatching that play in real time. And then the best play of the year, I think we can all agree on this. Doesn't even belong to the Bills. It's the Tyler Boyd 41-yard touchdown play.
Thank you, Tyler Boyd.
That was the greatest thing I've seen all season.
Oh my God. What a throw, what a catch, what a run after the catch. He eluded, almost broke a tackle kind of because the guy tried to shoestring him. Like he just the fact that, and this is what I guess I want to get to. The best play of the year does not belong to the Buffalo Bills. This is something I look forward to correcting in the future, but everyone knows where they were when that play happened. And everyone's going to have a story to tell their kids about where they were when that play occurred.
Exactly. When you're...
The shot heard around Buffalo.
When your eventual kids go, Dad, where were you when you saw... When Tyler Boyd caught that ball? You go, I was in the bathroom.
I was in the bathroom with a beer in my hand and one hand over my eyes. Like, I was rubbing my face. I was pacing. I'm boxed into what is essentially a half bathroom phone booth. It was incredible, guys. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in for this entire season. You guys have made this the most successful season of the Rockpile Report ever. In just 3 years, we've eclipsed over 500 downloads a week. You guys are ravenous for this stuff, and I'm going to do everything I can to try to provide you guys with the best shows that I possibly can every single week.
Yeah, look, it's just for those that are new to the show, this is your first season listening to us. We're going to come back next week with a show. Right now, we're going to get into draft breakdown. That's what we're going to do up until the draft. We're going to
We'll talk about some free agency stuff. We'll mix a lot of things into the.
We'll have stuff like that in there, but
Rick Dennison might not have a job next Tuesday.
Yeah,
we might all have something to celebrate.
Yeah, we might have to celebrate, and then Drew break down like 5 offensive coordinators that should fit in with Buffalo. But we're going to get into draft talk. What we're going to do is we're going to break down every position in the NFL draft, and we're going to give you if we're going to take somebody in the first round, mid rounds, late rounds, based on that player's projection to what we do on defense and or offense. We're going to have guests on every week, and we're going to break down the draft as only Drew knows how to. And if you were with us last year, that means he has no idea what he's talking about.
Last season made me second guess everything I think I knew about film review. So I really got to focus this year.
Chris is Matt Hasselbeck right now.
I know.
We want the ball and we're going to score. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah, I want a quarterback.
We're going to talk about this.
Now, to close out the show, Greg, you didn't have a number in the predictions, but we've been drinking beer all season long, and we've been keeping track. So if you look at my whiteboard in my kitchen, we have Drew's totals, my totals, and then what we have on the table here. You didn't have a number preseason, but if you were to guess, how many beers do you think is up on the board and what we have on the table?
Is this how many you drank during the games or just
Tuesdays? Every Tuesday when we record, starting with a podcast that leads into the first game of the season, and our season ended on Sunday. Yeah. So tonight, this is the final night of beer night.
18 weeks?
Yeah, well, 19 weeks.
Okay.
how many beers do you see on the board and then on the table, if you could guess? Because you didn't give us a prediction. Combined total, me and Drew. I've got the numbers. I want to hear your guess. What you see? I know that you see every week. You see for fucking double digits from Drew.
I've never really asked you guys about the board, but just based on what I'm seeing right here, I'm going to say about 325.
All right, you're way off.
All right.
This season, Drew Gear, you drank 235 beers.
Oh my God.
Now, last season, my guess that we would drink combined was 225. So this season, you outdrank my guess from last season. I drank 127 beers. We drank a total, cheers it here.
That's 362
beers this season.
Amen.
Nobody guessed it. The person that came closest was Erica Ruppenthal. She came closest with 360. Yeah. So we drank 362. And
Erica, congratulations, you're the winner.
Well, she's not technically the winner because she's not getting shit. If you guess it correctly.
You win a hearty handshake and a shout-out on the Rockpile Report.
Now, I will say Eric Harris guessed 261. We drank 101 more beers than what Eric Harris guessed.
You have no idea what you're talking about. You grossly underestimate
Come back
us.
with a better number next season. Beer Watch.
I didn't look at the board. Like, Drew has 10 in front of him right now. That's low for him.
Shh, quiet. Don't throw me under the bus like that.
That's low.
Folks, we got to get out of here. Thank you so much for listening for the entire 2017 season. We got to go. I'm Drew Gear. That's Gregg Torlone. That's Chris Kruger. And this has been the Rockpile Report.